What's up, Sifters? Welcome to GameFace, episode 359 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. We're back after just 6 days because we were on that weird Wednesday schedule for a couple weeks, but we got it back on track just in time for Q4. And alongside me to do that is Matt Kyle. What's up, Matt?
Cyberpunk is up.
Yeah.
Again.
Coming
away.
back around 3 years later. Here we are again talking about Cyberpunk 2077. Just a note, by the way, we are not talking about Phantom Liberty today. We're going to talk about Cyberpunk 2.0, and then we're going to talk about Phantom Liberty in next week's episode, because I unfortunately did not have any time to play it. Matt, you haven't even really started it yet either, right?
I'm a few hours into it.
Oh, you are?
But, I haven't even met Idris Elba yet.
Yeah, well, there you go. The star of that DLC, Matt's played it for 3 hours. He still hasn't run into him yet. So that shows you how big and meaty that is. It's $30, I think?
Yeah. It seems to be about on par with their usual, like Blood and Wine size.
Which in my opinion, is one of the greatest DLCs
huge.
ever. Yeah,
I don't know if this is on that quality level, but it seems to be about that scale.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, we'll talk about 2.0 version today, and then we'll talk about Phantom Liberty, the actual DLC, in next week's episode, because we already have an episode full of awesome stuff for today's show. We're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in depth, because that game has been blown out at Tokyo Game Show this entire week. Square Enix is just basically saturating the market, flooding the channels with gameplay footage of that. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Payday 3. We're going to talk about Ghostrunner 2. We're going to talk about that game that was supposed to be in last week's episode that Matt is really high on. We're going to make sure we get it into the episode today. So we have a great show for you guys. Hopefully you guys have had a good week. It's been kind of a mellow week as well. Pew! It's been kind of a mellow week as far as
that,
That's funny.
She's also the only cat I've ever had to react to sounds from games.
Really?
Like when a big thunk or something happens, she'll...
Really?
I've never had a cat that reacted.
Yeah, my cat just ignored it. She acted like the games didn't exist or anything existed, really, other than us. It's funny. So anyway, it's been kind of a slow week in game releases, but that's going to pick up for next week. And then obviously after that, it's October, and we all know what's coming in October. Maybe, Matt, the greatest month of video game releases in the history of the industry.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
I've started gathering games together.
Spider-Man and Mario on the same day.
Yeah, I know. I've started gathering together all the games for Dossier usually we're 10 games you should look at, or every once a good month will be 10 games we actually consider that you should buy. Yeah. This month it's going to be 15 or 20.
I'll admit, if it was just me, it was just me not doing a show, I'd get Mario and Spider-Man, and that would be pretty much it. There's not a lot in next month that's particularly interesting to me, but, as an individual consumer.
As if you were just a gamer who's buying stuff. Yeah. For me, there's a lot.
I wish I was interested in Alan Wake 2, but I'm gonna need to play it to believe it, I guess.
There are 6 horror related games coming out the last week of October.
Yeah, that's part of the problem.
And they keep getting added. They keep adding horror games to the last week of October. What are you thinking?
They all want Halloween, but it's the saturation is ridiculous, and I don't think Alan Wake 2 is going to do well.
I don't really
But
either.
I think it's going to do the best out of all of them, because it's got the most visibility.
Yeah, it's going to win Halloween. That may not mean much, but it's going to win it.
Yeah.
So if you're throwing your game in there during that week, you're stupid. I'm sorry. Once again, contact the Duck Consulting Agency. It's just too easy.
You might only have when else are you going to release that?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. They released the Resident Evil 4 remake, in the early part of the year. No one really cares.
Resident Evil 4 is the 800-pound gorilla of horror, so they can put whatever the hell they want. If you're a little horror-y game, you're probably looking for more.
Do you think you really need to release it at Halloween to have a chance?
I think there comes a point where, riding on the Halloween wave of let's play a horror game, becomes irrelevant compared to let's not get involved in this giant packed schedule. Mm-hmm. People will still play horror things in January.
Yeah. I do. I don't even think about the time of year when I go to play horror games. I'm a fan of horror in general.
Also, I feel like most people, from what I've seen online, if they want to do a horror thing for Halloween, they want to do their favorite horror stuff. Mm-hmm. They don't want to do a new thing necessarily. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people seem to just go to the comfort food.
Or they watch their favorite horror movie, or they share it with a friend or a significant other. This is my favorite scary movie or whatever.
Or play their favorite horror games.
Yeah, it's true.
Like that feels it because like people like tradition on the holidays.
Yeah.
And,
even Halloween. Yeah. You're right though. It's true, which is funny to say. Rock and Roll 458 says remind Luna to subscribe with Twitch Prime. I don't think she's coming back this episode. I'm going to go out on a limb and
I think she'll be back.
And say she's probably not going to make it back in here. I don't know. We'll see. She ran out of here in a haste, which usually is a sign that if she does come back, she'll come back for like Q&A or something like that. That's usually her MO. But we'll see how it goes. How are you guys doing? I hope you guys have had a good week. Let's check you guys out here in the chat and see what you guys are up to. David Nordic, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome. Let's see what else we got here. Don Lionheart, thank you for Twitch Prime. Time Zini, thank you for Twitch Prime. Got anyone else in here? I'm wondering, too, now if we're going to lose people on Tuesdays because we've been doing Wednesdays for the last 2 weeks. Seems like we got a smaller crowd than usual for our Tuesday show. But we'll see. Sometimes you guys show up a little bit later once you find the tweets and all that kind of stuff. But looks like everyone's having a mellow week just like we are, Matt. It's the calm before the storm, before everything goes haywire in October, and you guys are going to struggle to figure out which games to buy, and that's why we're here. Let's see. Let's get into some housekeeping. Matt, did you even know that Tokyo Game Show happened this past week?
Well, only because you talked about it last week. But.
Right, but otherwise, like just being out on the wilds of the internet, did you have really any clue?
Not really. I mean, there was a little more Japanese game news out there than normal, but
but not any.
Very
big
few
names.
people even credited it to Tokyo Game Show. It was just like, hey, here's this thing.
Yep, we curated more trailers for JRPGs than usual, and that was pretty much the extent of Tokyo Game Show. Like, Matt, it is like fallen so far from where it was back in 2012. It's like,
well, also Japan is not the center of the industry anymore.
Yeah,
like it's not. That used to be sort of like that's where you're going to get the news about the stuff that people actually care about.
Yeah. It's become a mobile gaming paradise.
Yeah. Western games used to be also rans to a large degree.
Also, one of the things I noticed that happened at Tokyo Game Show is that Microsoft and Xbox started promoting Game Pass, but they started promoting it on PC. So instead of saying, hey, go buy this Xbox console that we know you're never going to buy, you have these PCs at home. Why not join Game Pass on your PC? I think that's smart.
Yeah, I mean, you've lost that war over there.
Also, in the midst of it, Phil Spencer was saying that, hey, we're still interested in signing Japanese exclusives that appeal to the Japanese market. Like, do you think that that's smart?
Not for the people signing the exclusive. I mean, Xbox can do what it wants.
Yeah.
But, like...
I mean, do you think it's going to help Xbox in the market at all?
No. I mean, it'll help maybe the PC thing, but it's like... Because they just want you in the ecosystem. But I don't know, like... That seems... It seems like a lost cause.
It does, yeah. You think back to... I mean, Microsoft has done this before. Xbox has done this before with games like Blue Dragon. They had, 3 exclusives from Japanese developers back in the 360 era.
They had the 3 Mistwalker games.
Yeah, they tried to make a push there, and it did
Blue Dragon,
nothing,
Lost Odyssey, and...
What was the third one? I can't remember.
I don't know.
I don't either. Someone in chat will let us know.
Did it ever come out?
Maybe it never came out. Blue Dragon might as well have not come out.
Yeah.
It was pretty abysmal.
Blue Dragon, Lost Odyssey.
There was a third one.
There was a third one.
Wait, was it
It was just... No, I think the third one never happened.
Is that true?
Yeah. I have nothing in my brain about... I know they originally said 3.
I know it never worked.
Yeah, it didn't...
Which is what's most important.
Didn't turn out.
It did not move the needle at all. So here we are, Tokyo Game Show in 2023. I will say this, is good to see that the show is back, and it was good to see that there were people in attendance, and it seemed pretty packed. But every once in a while you get a glimpse of like what was off camera, because Square Enix and the publishers, they still did their big stage shows and their crazy wacky dance numbers and all this stuff. But every once in a while you just get a little glimpse, like the camera would just go to the one side and you'd see behind the stages, and it was just a empty cavern of a convention center. Makuhari Messe is huge. It's like gigantic. Like even in the heyday of Tokyo Game Show, it never filled that place up. Like there would still be, when you get at the back, like just huge amounts of open space. Now it's like all the booths are pushed up to the front, and it's just like 80% of the whole thing is just empty back there. So that was a little disconcerting. And then as the week played out, and obviously we go through all the content on Sifted to deliver it to you guys. It was just weak. There just wasn't anything there. At the end of it all, Matt, there were 2 games really that were featured there. the first one we're going to talk about is a full topic here in a bit, and that is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And that game was just blown the F out, as I said a little earlier. The other one was Dragon's Dogma. How do you feel about Dragon's Dogma 2, Matt? Did you check out a lot of it? Because this is also a game where they just put out a ton of footage, and there was video previews, and
some of it, like I mean, I'm honest, I don't care about this until I get my hands on it. Like, because Dragon's Dogma is such a weird, unique thing. This is maybe a weird thing to say, but parts of this look a little too good. Like, the jank was kind of one of the charms of it. And also, like, the jank was one of the reasons you could forgive how sloppy some of it was.
It was a sloppy game, for sure.
Both in terms of just, like, how, general tech, but also in terms of, like, Dragon's Dogma's terrible at telling you what to do. Like, quests pop up and disappear in the space of one thing. Like, you can miss quests forever if you don't stop in at the quest location giver thing between every single thing you do.
You're right, yeah.
Like to do a full 100%, like, did everything, got everything playthrough, I had to follow a walkthrough to the letter because it's so there's no way to know any of that stuff. And it works without it, obviously, but it's like when you realize how much stuff is slipping away from you just because you're playing the game how you want, it's very frustrating. But because it's so wonky in so many places, you're kind of like, oh, well, that's just sort of part of the game. It's oh, that didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to. Like, that attack didn't land the right way. Well, that's just sort of this game. If you make it like, that game looks very well put together, but they better have the gameplay elevated to the same level as what. And I know people are like, oh, the combat's the greatest thing ever. So I'm like, no, it's not. The combat's kind of fine, but like. And you can break it a lot, and like arcane archers are some of those powerful things ever to grace an action RPG, sure. And like the spell effects are really cool, but like the combat kind of sucks. Like it's fine, it gets you through it. It's like they're trying to do a Shadow of the Colossus thing with the warrior stuff. They're trying to really beef up the ranged combat and the magic, and that's all cool. But it's not, you can compare it to something like Bloodborne or Sekiro. It's not very good. And I'm just saying, like, this seems to be leaning harder into we're going to do, like, a real-ass, like, Skyrim-style thing here. And all I can say is their gameplay better be ready to support that.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And I don't really see a lot in this that necessarily proves that one way or the other.
Well, it might make you feel good to know that the prevailing opinion out of Tokyo Game Show was that it was eerily similar to the first game. That people struggled to find many changes to the formula, which maybe that's the right call. I do remember Miguel Lopez reviewed this for us at Game Trailers, and he came in after he had spent like a whole weekend playing it, and he just said to me, he's like, Shane, I don't know how to review this game. He's like, I've been doing this for a long time, and he's like, this game has thrown me a curveball. He's like, I need other people to play it, and we kind of did that at GT anyway. We'd always try to have at least one other person playing a game, and then the two editors could kind of get together and talk about it. But he was like, I need other people to play it. I want to talk to someone about this. And so I think Justin Spear took it home and played it for a couple days and came back, and they were going through the same thing. They were like, there's some parts of this that I love so much, but there's these other blatantly obvious issues that we generally ding games pretty hard for. But
yeah, like if you were to ask me like just rate it on like how you feel about it, it's probably one of my favorite games of that generation. If you were asking me to like rate it as a technical production, it would get 5s and 6s.
Yeah.
Like it's the gulf between how much you like that game and what it actually is remarkable.
It is. Yeah.
And it does have a weird charm. Even the bad voice acting has the fact that the fucking pawns are just like wolves hunt in packs or isn't, like it's like like the fact they won't shut up is part of the charm of it.
Yeah.
Like it's weird. There's nothing else like it.
Yeah. Yep. Well, it was one of the two big games at Tokyo Game Show, and otherwise, it was a very, very quiet show. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that show going forward. I'm sure they're going to do it next year, but I mean, it was
clearly
sad.
People are still showing up and paying to come in,
which is really all that matters.
It's always been a public show, so they're not going to have a problem with that.
Yeah. But yeah, well, I mean, I know we say this every year. The Tokyo Game Show rolls around. That we talk about how far it's fallen and things like that. That course has not been corrected.
No, it's just become something else. Like the market there is interested in different things than we are.
Yeah.
We think it's boring that it's all mobile stuff, but that's what gaming is in Japan to a large degree.
Yeah, it's mostly mobile at this point. So anyway, Tokyo Game Show, I wouldn't call it a bust. It's just basically was like it has been for the last several years. It's just kind of a non-story. There's always going to be one or two big games that end up popping and making a fuss, with the Western press. And that's what happened with Dragon's Dogma and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But otherwise, it was a pretty mellow Tokyo Game Show. Kind of on the coattails of that, Capcom just came out of nowhere and kind of made an announcement that it is not open to being acquired by Microsoft. Mm-hmm. I found that to be a little interesting that Capcom found. I mean, do you see any rumors anywhere? I didn't see in any of the.
I saw those emails where they're talking about buying Nintendo and Capcom and.
Wait, was Capcom in there?
They were mentioned.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay, I did not see that because I was confused. I'm like, why is he talking about this? Like,
some of those emails were mentioning like a bunch of different Japanese, and like Nintendo was signaled out because like that was the one that Phil said would be like the career making whatever thing, but several other companies were mentioned.
Do you believe that, Matt? If Microsoft came knocking with the right amount of money, that Capcom would say no?
Yes.
Yeah?
I believe the head of that company would say no.
I'll say this. Japanese businesses are run differently. And while I would not... If someone said that in America, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. Everybody has a price in America. You're right. That is not the case generally in Japan. I think if it were...
And remember, the founder is still alive.
I think if it were like Toshiba or like a huge like Japanese electronics company that wanted to buy Capcom, I think Capcom would have a different perspective on it.
It would be a Japanese company acquiring them would probably be a different story.
Yeah, but having a Western company come in and
particularly that Western company,
and try to scoop it up. Particularly if you're a Japanese company, you've watched Xbox fail for 2 decades now in your territory. Like if you're acquired by them, that's not something that generally you're going to be proud of. That's something that you're probably going to be like, well, we made a lot of money off of it, and all our stockholders made a bunch of money, but yeah.
He also said that games are too cheap.
Yeah, he wants to start charging $70 for their games now, too.
Yeah, which is everybody else is
it's fine. Like, I have no problem with that. I'm surprised that Capcom hasn't. Like, its games are worth $70 if the other ones are, for sure. So, yeah, I hear
if any game was worth $70 this year, it was Resident Evil 4.
Absolutely, yeah. So I tend to agree with you, Matt. I think Capcom probably would stand its ground. I do think there's a certain point, though, with the dollar amounts where the stockholders of Capcom would be like, no, dude, you're selling. Like, when you talk, you can't turn down that kind of money. A fair deal for Capcom, I agree with you. They would turn it down in a heartbeat. But an exorbitant deal for Capcom, I think they would at least consider.
Maybe, but I also don't see the point of that from Microsoft's perspective. Like, what are you going to do with it?
I think to what we were talking about earlier, I think Microsoft still cares about the Japanese market. It still feels like it needs some kind of a foothold there. Owning Capcom would help with that. I don't know if it would make much of a difference.
I think people would just kind of walk away from it.
Yeah, people would just forget about Capcom.
Like, what are you going to do?
There.
Like, you've doomed Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Like, you're never going to get Street Fighter again.
Yeah.
Like, because the only reason Street Fighter works tournament style is because you can just do the PlayStation deal.
Right.
And like, no one's going to do that with Xboxes in Japan. Yeah. If the Japanese FGC isn't on board, then the rest of the world isn't on board. Like, Resident Evil, sure, but like, that's the thing. Like, Capcom is a big deal, but like, I feel like the Japanese market could just sort of walk away from a lot of that and not really care.
Yeah, because the Japanese market is like 80% mobile gaming anyway. Like, it's crazy. If you look at like the sales of games in Japan, it is pathetic.
Like, I just feel like if Microsoft does that and puts all that on Xbox exclusively, I feel like the Japanese market would just be like, well, that's too bad, but we're not doing that.
I honestly think, Matt, the California video game market is bigger than the Japanese gaming market.
It's possible.
As far as traditional gaming, not excluding mobile. Like, as far as consoles, PC gaming, I think California is as big a market as Japan at this point. I mean, if you look at the hardware sales in Japan, it's sad. Like, it's hard to believe how few consoles that they're selling in Japan now. Even PlayStation 5 has struggled to build an install base there. So it's pretty crazy to think about. When I first got in the industry, Japan was like the Mecca, basically. And that's where you wanted to go. And if you could get a job there, oh my gosh, that's a dream. And things have just shifted drastically.
I wouldn't have wanted a job there. But...
No, you would never be interested. I mean, before I knew what Japan was, I thought I wanted to live there and work there.
I mean, I don't understand. I mean, I can't speak the language for one thing. Learning to read the language is very difficult. and you are always an outsider.
You are
forever.
Yeah.
Like there's no like no. And like it's like visiting another planet.
It kind of is.
Like like I don't. Like the culture's very different, the food is very different. The food's good, but it's like after 2 weeks, I'm just like, I just want a cheeseburger and someone to be rude to me from behind a counter, please. Like,
I mean, we have several people probably on the stream right now sitting in Japan watching our show, and you know they survive, they're okay, they like it there. So I think you can get over the hump.
I wouldn't. I'm talking about me. Like I would not want to do that.
Yeah.
Like I just wouldn't, and I also wouldn't want to work in Japanese business culture.
That is, yeah. Like, I remember I did that documentary with Team Ninja, and we got to interview a female developer, and it was one of the weirdest moments I've ever had working in this industry. Where beforehand, they're trying to tell me what questions I can and cannot ask their female employee, and then during the interview, they're, like, standing over my shoulder, looking at, like, the questions on a sheet, like, and then the poor girl who had to answer the question, she was terrified, to be honest. You could just see it in her eyes. Mm-hmm. She's like, no, she basically sat there and was like, everything is awesome. I'm treated exactly how I want to be treated.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay. Like, it was awkward. And again, that was over 10 years ago at this point. So, you know, I'm sure things have changed at least a little bit. But you're right. It's a different business environment there, to be sure. So, anyway, just another glimpse inside the Japanese market. But the truth be told, Capcom's bread is buttered in the West. That's where they make all their money. That's where almost all these Japanese companies make all their money, which is odd because it never used to be that way. So,
also, one of the reasons they make as much money as they do is they're on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Limiting that to one platform would be a problem.
Well, they don't care about it then because all they care about is...
Right, but I'm saying for Microsoft buying them, I don't think there's a reason for that. It's pointless.
Yeah.
Like you'd be paying a ton of money to override what the owners want to make sure the sale went through anyway, but then you'd be getting a fraction of what you bought in terms of revenue because you're limited to one platform, or you expand to everything, at which point, why did you even bother?
Yeah. There is a certain point where...
It's not like Microsoft needs more money. Like the only reason to buy Capcom would be to get that bag, and Microsoft doesn't need more money. Like, they need leverage, and Capcom's not really going to give them that.
Yeah, you do wonder at what point when...
Like, I guess Monster Hunter, maybe, but...
I mean, Capcom, you can make money with Capcom in your roster. But
sure,
I think the bigger question is,
Microsoft doesn't need more money. They need penetration. They need eyeballs. They need people in the ecosystem.
But if they don't need more money, then why bother?
Because that's not where
they want to make more money.
Because that's not where they want the money to come. That's small potatoes. Like, what they want is a permanent income stream from constant subscribers who never leave.
Right, but if you've got Capcom as another 4 games a year that's filling in that hole on Game Pass, like, there's value to that.
Not to the degree for the money they'd have to pay to get Capcom.
Maybe.
In fact, you could argue that Bethesda was not worth the money either. But
I would definitely argue that.
I think I think they'd have to shell out similar money for Capcom. Yeah, they would.
$69 billion for Capcom? No way.
69 billion?
Yeah, for Activision Blizzard is what they paid.
No, I said Bethesda.
Oh, Bethesda. Yeah, you're right. They'd be about the same probably.
Just to override the Japanese owners not wanting to sell. To
for the record,
company.
I don't think they ever paid for Bethesda. I think they ever paid for Activision Blizzard. Mm-hmm. Bethesda, I think that deal's fair. Like, they're going to make that money back, no problem.
Maybe?
Yeah, they will.
Like, how?
I mean, they've already sold 15 million copies of Starfield. Yeah. They're already well on their way.
Well, hopefully that'll hold them over
for
until
the next 10 years.
The next 10 years till Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, because nothing else Bethesda makes is going to make that kind of money.
You're right. I think the bigger fear might be gamer consumer sentiment. If you are perceived as this company that's just going around buying up everyone's favorite developers, buying up their favorite franchises, there could be a little bit of a consumer rebellion there, where they're like, you know what? I don't want to support you. I don't care if you have Capcom and Square Enix and everybody. I don't want to support you. I think there's maybe a little bit of that, particularly in the game space, where people a lot of times think with their hearts instead of their heads.
Vincent makes a good point that Japan's courts might treat Monster Hunter like we treated Call of Duty.
It's true. Because it is almost as big there. Yeah. Yep. So anyway, looks like Capcom
buying Square and
put.
being like, what happens to Dragon Quest?
Yeah. I do wonder, too, if this is Capcom dog whistling to PlayStation, saying, like, we don't want to be purchased by Microsoft, but they're sniffing around. You might want to think about coming and talking to us.
But also, like, why would Capcom want to be owned by anybody?
I know. I don't get it. Because
they don't need that.
Their financials have been amazing for the last 4 years.
That's the thing, is they can say no.
Mm-hmm. They can afford to.
And that again, part of the one nice difference about that business culture is it is not obsessed with making as much money for the shareholders as humanly possible. Certainly not in that space. So I don't think there'd be a lot of pressure from Capcom shareholders to sell out to a mega corporation like that, like even Sony.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't get them anything, and now you're because the problem with Xbox is like now you're owned by a Western company, and that's weird. A Western company that has almost no presence in your market, which is weird. And with Sony, now you have to abide by the decisions of Sony, and no one should have to do that. So that's a lose-lose for Capcom.
You're right. I mean, I think
because
every
they do,
company,
because Capcom and the people who lead Capcom, and they do seem to care about Capcom as a brand, as a company, as a historical entity in the industry. Like, I don't think they want, even the people who would make money from that deal want to see Capcom become like another sad subsidiary that nobody knows what to do with and starts making, shitty Resident Evil movies again.
Then all the layoffs start happening and studios start getting closed.
Like, there just doesn't seem to be an upside for that when they're making money hand over fist as it is. Like, Capcom can keep its independence. Like, there's no downside to that right now.
Yep. When you're profitable,
go talk to Square.
You have the upper hand. Square. I mean, you're right. Square Enix is the vulnerable one there.
Yeah,
sure.
Capcom should just send an email to Sony and be like, "Hey, Square, you should buy Square.
Leave us alone.
Leave us alone.
Go buy those guys." Next up, we got some news this week. Another one of these voice actors who just doesn't understand the games industry, who went blabbing. We now know that there is a third Star Wars Jedi game coming from Electronic Arts.
Did he go blabbing, or did he know that the strike was coming?
That could be too. You're right. He may be being strategic there.
He's not new.
Yeah. I mean, this is the third game that he's worked on.
He's also not new in acting. I mean, it's not like actors don't know they have to be quiet about things.
Yeah.
But this is a good way to build a little bit of hype. You also saw some of the Naughty Dog Last of Us 2 actors saying, "Oh, we're back in the mocap studio." Nobody knows what it was for. Could be Last of Us 3. Could be whatever that fantasy thing that they mentioned once and never mentioned again was.
Yeah.
But a lot of that has popped up a couple times this week where people are like the game mocap and voice actors have been like, "We're doing this thing," and like all of a sudden 98% SAG voted for a strike against the video game industry because that's good leverage because it gets good public leverage. Like, hey, Jedi 3 is coming, awesome. Oh, if that's going to take longer if this strike goes on. And remember, they probably have to get that done by Thanksgiving because there's not going to be that much. Everything kind of goes on hiatus after that.
Yeah.
So I think some of this might have been strategic, quote unquote, leaking in preparation for this negotiation.
I also feel like the strike for video game voice actors only happened after the actors settled. And
the actors haven't settled yet.
Oh, I thought they did.
That was the writers.
Oh, the writers.
The writers struck a deal.
Okay.
The SAG probably will follow soon after.
But I think that was the first stick to fall. Was like, okay, they've got their stuff settled. They got concessions. Have you looked at that contract? Does it look like it's going to work out okay for the writers?
It'll be fine for the writers for the most part.
It's only 3 years, which I'm like, so you're going to be doing this again in 3 years?
They're always 3 years.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't know that.
That keeps things a little negotiable and safe. The problem wasn't that 3 years. The problem was the negotiations broke down for the renewal, and normally, hopefully the AMPTP has learned its lesson on not. The problem, of course, the other problem is that Netflix and Apple and a bunch of the other studios came together to form a streaming coalition watchdog group, which is the opposite of what needs to happen, and like citing things about, oh, we don't want regulation because that might mean they can tell us what we can and can't make. It's like, okay, so you're going we're not afraid of censorship and what you want to watch will be censored thing, as opposed to like. They are letting their doom in by the front door on this one. Like that is going to unravel in the space of 2 to 3 years. The streaming, they need to break them up.
Yeah.
If you own a streaming service, you cannot own a content production company.
That's probably smart.
That is the same thing they did to break up if you cannot own the method of distribution. That is an actual monopoly.
That is a monopoly. Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a bunch of different streaming services, but that you can't get Disney content anywhere else.
Right.
You can't buy The Mandalorian on DVD. You cannot watch the Harley Quinn animated show anywhere else. You can, and that means that when these things go away from these streaming services, they're gone forever. Like there are things that we don't know if we'll ever be able to legitimately get some of these movies again that premiered on these things and were pulled off. You can't own the form of distribution if you also are owning the content. That is what happened. That was the end of the golden age of Hollywood. Was the FTC broke up.
Yep.
The fact
they're monopolies.
The monopoly. The studios all owned theater chains, and so they controlled what went into their own theater chain. So that was, if you lived in a town and they just had like a Fox theater, you only got to watch Fox movies pretty much, unless Paramount or some of these other companies wanted to make.
Or they built their own theater.
Or paid exorbitant extra fees to distribute into a rival's own theater. And that's basically what's happening here in a weird way. Is like you have to separate the streaming services from the content production.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's inevitable, and this is the opposite of. And look, they want to hold on to it because they want as much control as possible. You're also going to have to separate things like Apple and Amazon from this.
Yeah.
This studio, which is ridiculous. Like it's going to be, you're going to be tearing it apart at the root, basically. And it's going to be ugly. And who knows? I don't know if we have an administration upcoming that would actually be willing to tackle it, to let the blood that would be required for that. No, the guts to do that would be hard to find.
Or a governor of our state.
But that would have to be on a federal level.
Yeah, you're right.
It would be very difficult to find a politician or an administration with the balls to really dig into
rip it apart the way it should be. Yep. So anyway, there is a sequel to Star Wars Jedi Survivor coming. My guess is we don't see that till 2025.
Yeah, at least. I mean, the other one took 3 years, so probably 2026.
Yeah. Now Stig's not there, and the timing of this is weird too, with Stig leaving and blah blah blah. Who knows?
Although, I mean, look, it didn't help the PC version.
That's true.
So
that's true.
They know what the formula is at this point. So.
Yeah. And maybe that's the problem. Is that Stig was like, other people know the formula, they can do the job, and they're like, oh, okay then. And he's like, so I'll get promoted up, and I'll take. No, that's not happening.
I don't know, or he just wanted to move on something else.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean, working at EA is probably not all that fun.
Yeah, you make a lot of money, but
you don't make that.
Once you have a certain amount of money, does it matter all that much anymore?
No, but you don't make that much money. I don't think, not in that position.
At EA?
At a subsidiary of EA that's wholly owned, working on one game, probably not.
My guess is he was making $400,000.
He made okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it was that much. I would be surprised if it was that much.
Also, we got news this week that another Division game is coming. The Division 3 is on the way. It's under development by Ubisoft Massive, which is the same studio that made the Division 2. Matt, is this your favorite loot shooter? It seems like it is.
I mean, it's probably the one no, my favorite loot shooter is Destiny.
Oh, okay.
That's the one I played for 400 some hours.
Yeah. Then burned you out for the rest of your life?
Pretty much. I mean, I played Division 1 for quite a
We did. We played it together for quite a while,
but
actually.
Like, I don't ever need to do that again, really.
This is my favorite loot shooter, the Division.
It's good.
I also played Destiny and Destiny 2, but I found that I liked this one more. I like the Division 2. The Division 1, I thought, fell way short of what I expected the game was going to be and what it was going to have in it. I thought the Division 2 was ultimately what I thought the Division 1 was going to be. Obviously, neither one of us were big fans of the whole extraction and the dark zone and all that stuff, but the core of the game I thought was great. By the way, I think I'm playing here with Johnny Hurricane. I think if you pay attention, you'll see him jumping in and out of the shots here. I think I played it with him we both played it together for review in this B-roll. But anyway, I do like The Division, and it is my favorite loot shooter or game as a service, shooter as a service, as it were. So I'm pretty excited about this. I will say this. I feel like Ubisoft has not done a great job with DLC for this franchise. I thought the first one, really, they could have improved drastically with DLC. And it's not like they gave up. There was just nothing. They've never created anything particularly compelling with this.
Well, it's like one of the major DLCs for this one was like sewers.
Right. Go down in the sewers. Like, who wants to do that? Like, nobody wants to do that.
Add more areas. Add more cities. Add something. Like,
or just add, like, interesting parts of town. It's like, okay, now we're going to crack open, like, Brooklyn. It's like, Brooklyn doesn't look that much different from Manhattan. Like, how about you go into, like, Hell's Kitchen or Queens, like, ethnic areas where they actually look and feel different. So you can actually try some different themes with the game.
Yeah,
like,
although that's also kind of part of the problem with, like, the setting is, like, it's just all overgrown dead city.
Yeah.
Like, there's not much, like, I mean, yeah, that's Hell's Kitchen is a different, like, culture, but that culture is gone.
You're right. But still, it's the setting, though. There's lots of graffiti.
I guess, but like, it's just, who cares? Like, you're not even looking at that after 5 minutes, but at least it'd be outside. Like, the sewer thing is one of the dumbest things they've ever done. Like, like, that's the thing that people literally make fun of video games for doing, is making you go in the sewer all the time. That's even a problem in Cyberpunk sometimes. It's like, why are you making me go through a sewer tunnel in this neon drenched like city? Like, why am I here? Like, it's and it's just like, again, if you didn't tell me this was the second one, I mean, I guess I would know, because there's not this much open space.
Yeah, to me, it's obvious that this is the Division 2
in New York, but like,
I mean, the Division 1 was like all downtown, like. It was just a bunch of
and they never
buildings.
expanded. I thought they were going to add the rest of Manhattan.
I think they did eventually.
I don't think they did.
No?
I think they added Central Park, but I don't think they really went much north of that. And then they did add like some kind of some kind of Brooklyn thing. They went the other direction, which I thought was surprising.
I mean, I hope the Division 3 is set in like L.A. or San Francisco or Seattle or some other city. Like,
I can't imagine them doing it. San Francisco.
Too many games are set in New York City.
San Francisco just be like running up the hill.
Yeah, I love New York City, and I've spent a ton of time there, and with a ton of different people doing a ton of different things. But I'm tired of it. Like,
New York City's not an interesting setting to me. Certainly not in a game.
There's just too many games that use it.
It's been done too much. Also, I haven't been to New York as much, but like, I'll say this: New York is cool. Like, I've enjoyed visiting it when I have, but like, as a Californian, the weird attitude of New York towards like LA and San Francisco is always like off-putting to me.
Stupid.
It's like you get those like New Yorker articles where it's just like, it's like, Los Angeles has restaurants now. They think they're people. It's very cute. And it's just like, dude, what do you talk? They're always a little, you get these New York critics that are like a little surprised that we have like running water, and it's just like, what are you doing? Like, what are you talking about?
Noxator Nida says Las Vegas could be cool, and it could, but we just played a shooter in Las Vegas. Which one was it? There's like crazy scenes set in Vegas where you can see the Strip and it's all covered in sand. What game was that? There's also a movie recently, a horror movie that was set in Vegas. But there was a game where in one part of it you go to Vegas. Is it Horizon Forbidden West? No.
Yeah, I mean, there was a thing with Vegas, and that where you reactivated the hologram signs.
That was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, but it wasn't exactly the Vegas experience.
Right, it was like a post-apocalyptic Vegas or whatever.
I get, like, the problem with Vegas is it's just flat, and there's only one interesting street. Two, there's Fremont Street and the Strip, and everything else is just sort of a normal town.
Or it's just desert. There's nothing there at all.
Yeah, that's the other thing is, like, it depends what you're setting. Like, the Division, like, if in the Division setting, that would just be sand.
Right.
Like if you abandon Vegas, it basically gets swallowed by the sands in the space of a year.
Yeah.
That city exists purely by the force of will.
Yeah. Shaniki says, I want more games set outside of America. I can totally understand
that would be
Tokyo
good.
Wouldn't be a bad spot for the next Division game.
Tokyo would be fun. You certainly wouldn't run out of districts.
No.
I would like to see more European settings. Like, we don't get stuff.
Call of Duty jumps around in Europe, but each section lasts like 20 minutes, and then you're off to some other part.
Like, if you want to talk about like an open world thing, like, you know, it was nice to see London and Watch Dogs Legion, but like,
but that's all you saw.
Yeah, but it's like, when do we get, like, you know, God, when was the last time anything was set in Paris? Like the Saboteur?
Maybe.
Like, just you don't see Paris much.
That's a great city too for a game.
You never see Munich or Berlin. You never see something like Zurich would be like a setting in Switzerland be interesting. Amsterdam, be fun. Edinburgh, like where's my Scottish gaming? Where's my Dublin open world crime game? Like,
you can see why I love The Division, because it's got a turret in it. And I'm like a master using a turret in this game. Like, I can throw it on the top of a car from like 60 yards. So anyway, Division 3 is on the way, although I'm also guessing this is 2026, 2025. They're just now getting into pre-production on it.
This is also a weirdly quiet announcement, like, just sort of, you know, like, okay, we're just gonna mention the Division 3's coming.
No trailer, no anything.
no, there's like, it's coming.
I feel like Ubisoft is just kind of operating in this weird space now.
I mean, I know Massive's probably, their focus has to be Outlaws right now, but like, you know, it's just, I mean, I guess they just want people to know that something's coming, because you look at that release schedule for Ubisoft, and it's like, first off, 2 of the games nobody really believes exist, which is Skull and Bones and Beyond Good and Evil 2. And then you've got Outlaws and the fucking Foam thing. Or no, that's Square.
Foam Stars is Square Enix.
It sure looks like something Ubisoft would make.
You're absolutely right. But anyway, and my guess also is that this is PC, PS5, and Xbox Series only. I don't think we'll be dragging along the PS4 and Xbox One at that point. At least I hope not.
I don't think anybody's going to be doing that.
We're kind of past it already. Like, even like Payday 3, which we're going to talk about today, it's only next gen. It doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
If you look at this graphics, it doesn't look like it at all. But it is only PS5 and Xbox Series, and pretty much almost all games are like that now. The only games that are still dragging their feet are the sports games. A lot of EA stuff still will do like all the platforms or whatever, but most publishers at this point and developers have moved on and are next gen only. Next up, I don't know if I believe this one, even though it comes from sources that are usually like 100% reliable. And this rumor is that Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming to Switch. To me, this is obviously, it's got to be a cloud-based game.
Well, yeah.
I don't think there's no way that they're going to jimmy the code of this game to get it to run on the Switch.
Unless you want to do a Mortal Kombat situation.
Yeah, which has turned into a complete nightmare.
It's pretty funny, though.
Yeah, like I'm sure NetherRealm was
It's not funny if you paid $70 for it, but it's pretty funny to see the screenshots.
It is. I'm sure NetherRealm looked at it like, hey, like, we're going to try to hook up Switch owners, and if it doesn't work out great, at least we tried, right? But the problem is that you're asking $70 for the game, and there wasn't that much like coverage of the Switch version before the game's launched. In fact, there was hardly any. Like, I don't know if we have any footage of the Switch version.
I didn't see any until it came out. And
yeah.
People were posting like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of some shady stuff going on there, honestly. Like,
sort of, but also, like, if you're buying that kind of thing for the Switch, you should probably have realistic expectations of what that thing's going to look like, which is about what it looks like.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm sorry, it's decade-old hardware.
Yeah. Would you want to play this game on the cloud?
No. It feels like you're walking through molasses already. I don't need to add a second and a half of fucking input lag.
Truth be told, it's not really like a Twitch game. It kind of has the auto aim from Grand Theft Auto in it. You could probably get away.
But I don't like where it aims.
Yeah,
like, I turn that off.
It always aims like right in the chest, and you have to like just kick it up a little bit for the head.
A little bit for the head. Yeah, that's gonna be. No, of course not. Why would I want to do that to myself?
My guess is it'll still sell very, very well.
Sure.
Even if it is a cloud-based game. Like,
I can finally play this boring, slow game on the go.
I think a lot of people don't look at it that way. I think a lot of people, you know...
Well, also, you can't play it on the go unless you have a fucking robust-ass Wi-Fi connection, because on the cloud, like, I don't see the point. I really don't see the point. It's... Like, I know it sells, but it's so dumb.
Yeah.
It's... Even as someone who has played The Witcher 3 in almost every incarnation, I still won't touch it on this. Like, it's ridiculous.
Some of this cloud stuff that Nintendo does with third parties, I feel like it's Nintendo trying to keep a relationship with these publishers when it has hardware capable of actually running these games.
But they're never going to have hardware capable of running the game that's the current thing for them. So it's like, what, you're going to re-release Red Dead Redemption 2 on the Switch 2?
Oh, yeah. You know that's going to happen. You know all the big third-party games.
We're going to be 10 years out of date in hardware or software. Pick one. Basically.
You know it's going to happen, though.
Sure. What else are you going to do with it?
Yeah. I mean, and I think this might be part of it. Nintendo wants to maintain these relationships with these big third parties so that when they need them, they're going to be there.
Or at least there's a possibility.
Yeah.
Like Rockstar may or may not go for it.
Right.
But.
Yeah. Rockstar in particular is obviously always the X factor. You never know what Rockstar is going to do. But at the same time, look, if you're a Switch-only owner, and I don't know why anybody would be that at this point, but there are people out there who only own a Switch, I think this is better than nothing. So...
Is it...
To us, it's not, because we have the other consoles, but to them it is.
But
like,
who cares about this game who doesn't have other platforms to play it on?
It's like a 97 Metacritic. A lot of people do. If you're a Nintendo owner, you've never had a chance to play a lot. Look at like the Red Dead Redemption 1 port. Like, you didn't see a lot of Nintendo fans complaining about that. We were the ones saying $50 for that port. It wasn't the Nintendo fans complaining. They were like, Yahoo, I finally get to play Red Dead Redemption.
I mean, if you only own Nintendo systems, I guess you just don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I mean, that could be part of it.
It's like, I'm sorry you've never seen a modern game.
Yeah, Swanland says Red Dead 1 already made a ton of concessions. They obviously don't care. I mean, they don't. Like, Nintendo fans
it's so long after the fact, like Rockstar doesn't care.
Nintendo fans have been beaten down since the N64 era, as far as third-party games are concerned.
It's the right B-roll for it.
Yeah.
This is actual footage of Nintendo fans
getting beaten up by third-party publishers.
By third-party publishers.
Look, they've been dealing with this for a long time. If you're like a Nintendo-only gamer, man, you have missed out on so many great games from the last 20 years.
If you're a Nintendo-only gamer, I would argue you don't actually like video games. You just like Nintendo games,
or you just don't have time.
In
to play
which case,
everything.
why do you care about Red Dead Redemption 2? Like, I just keep coming. It's like a logic loop. I keep coming back around. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think Nintendo's just doing everything it can to get some decent third-party games on its platform.
Sneaky actually makes a good point. Nintendo fans think Pokemon runs great. So yeah, I guess there's just no.
Are they really that deluded that they thought Scarlet and Violet ran well?
I've seen people claim that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I've also seen people scream at them about it. But like, the fans argue about that. But there are people who just have no. I guess the Nintendo 64 was fine for them, and they have never moved past the 15 frames per second threshold. I guess I don't know.
I forget that you spend time on Reset Era, which I do not. Which is a great place to rub elbows with Nintendo fans.
I mean, I'm thinking more Twitter.
Yeah,
I've seen that on Twitter more than anything else. Yeah, it's just. Sure, whatever. Yeah. I mean, if that's what you want to do to yourself, we all have to live our lives. But like,
I'm happy for Nintendo fans, and some of them will get to play a game that they've probably wanted to play for a long time.
We get to play a crappy version of it that they're going to be charged too much money for. So it's I beg you to get a real game system at some point.
I mean, it won't be long. Less than a year from now, will be my guess that there'll be another Switch, and this will all be
that will also not run this game properly.
I think you're right. It'll be borderline probably. I mean, it looked pretty good on base PS4.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
Yeah, but all right.
All right's about as far as you're going to go.
It's going to get.
Like, you can buy a brand new system and you're already stuck with that's all right.
Yeah. Let's see, more news from this week. PlayStation was hacked by a dark web hacker this week.
Or claims to be.
That claims to be. It claims that it has, 6,000 emails or something?
Yeah, I thought it was 60,000.
Oh, I thought it was 6.
It was much more than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Even so? It's like, so? You're going to put out our email? I mean, I guess it could be pretty bad. We've seen that with Microsoft and Xbox.
Yeah, well, they could sell the information
to
other people. You compromise things. You probably should
trade secrets.
You should probably change your password on PSN.
Yeah.
Just in case.
You think we all should?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they have that, though. It didn't seem like they had compromising data on customers or...
It's hard to tell, and there's no way to know if they even got anything. They're claiming it, but there's been no proof. But
right.
Like, who knows?
Yeah. Seems like a big story to really... Not much to say about it, though.
No, I mean, we'll see if anything happens. I mean, if PSN goes down for a week during Spider-Man, I guess that's a problem.
That would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
No day one patch. Will the game even play without the day one patch?
It would, but like, I mean, if I were them, I would take it down a week before so to kill preloading.
Yeah.
So you can't even install it. Mm-hmm. Because even if you get the disc, you're going to install that. But like, yeah, no, that would be mean. That'd be very mean.
I mean, the big fear if you're a PlayStation or Sony...
That's the only way you could get me to play Super Mario Wonder first.
Oh. If they completely
like, well, I guess I'll play this until they get around to like fixing PSN.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're PlayStation or Sony or a big gaming publisher, your fear is losing source code. Like, losing a bunch of emails, they could be bad. They could not be.
I mean, Sony has to just be worried about a repeat of the PSN debacle from back on the PS3 where it was down for, like 14 days or something? Right. That's what they're afraid of in this regard. Like,
the hackers could take it down somehow.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
I'm not clear on how that was done.
Me either. I still don't know how that was done. So. Yeah. I had even forgotten that had happened, to be honest with you, until you brought it up. So, yeah. I think this is a story that seems bigger than it actually is, but we'll see. There could be some stuff that comes out of it. And then finally, Matt, I was really starting to wonder there, but we finally got a little bit of a hint that maybe Hollow Knight Silksong is coming out this year. There has been
Where
movement.
in the world would you put this?
What'd you say?
Where would you put this now in the schedule?
I don't know, but it's on my fantasy team, so I need it to come out. There has been work on the back end on Steam for Hollow Knight Silksong, and typically when that happens, that's usually a sign that whatever game the activity is happening to is going to have some major announcement very soon, or it's going to be released very soon. So a little bit encouraging that we may actually
pushing it to 2024 would in fact be a major announcement.
It would actually. I think you could find room in November and December for this game easily.
Yeah, but like then you're not going to make the Game Awards.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, if you got it in November, I think you might.
Early November could do it.
Yeah.
But I don't remember when the cutoff is, but it's earlier than you think.
Don't forget, this was
the cutoff is Call of Duty, let's be honest.
Pretty much.
That's when the cutoff for the Game Awards is the week after Call of Duty comes out, whenever that happens to
after
be.
they know what the reviews are and everyone's played it. You're generally right. That's usually how it kind of works. But, I mean, I don't know. This game was supposed to come out on Game Pass in June.
This game was supposed to be DLC.
Right. And now it's a full game or whatever. But this was supposed to be
At this
on
point, I'm
Game
waiting
Pass.
for them to announce that Silksong is its own console.
Right.
It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Now, you got to remember, I mean, Microsoft announced this, that Silksong was going to be on Game Pass in the summer. And here we are, we're heading into fall, and the game still isn't out yet. So it's kind of overdue by a couple measures. It obviously had signed a deal with Microsoft.
Did they ever specifically say in the summer, or did
Yes, they did. Yeah.
It wasn't just like the thing last year where they're like everything we show is going to be out in the next year.
No, they specifically mentioned this game coming this summer to Game Pass. So, I mean, you figure there's a deal there in place that they need to satisfy, or they could lose out on a bunch of money. I don't know. Like, what the hell's going on with this game? It's not that complicated. Like, it's really weird.
Things that feel perfect.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're waiting for Hollow Knight Silksong, which I know a lot of people are because people love Hollow Knight, there's a slight chance it may actually come out this year still. So keep your fingers crossed. Next up, riding on the coattails of the Capcom thing earlier, we learned yesterday that Kamiya is leaving Capcom, which blew my mind. I literally thought he would one day be the president of Capcom.
I thought he was leaving Platinum.
Oh, I'm sorry, Platinum Games. Yeah, I'm sorry. But he comes from Capcom, obviously. He was part of the Devil May Cry team, Beautiful Joe team.
People, they all basically left when they got sick of Capcom canceling their shit.
He was the head of Clover Studio, which was a little imprint spin-off of Capcom. And now he left Capcom for Platinum, and now he's leaving Platinum. And he hasn't really said what he's going to do. Have you ever met Kamiya?
No.
He is a weird dude.
You don't say.
He's very quiet, he's a little creepy, I'll be honest with you, man. He kind of creeps me out a little bit. I've been around him a bunch of times. I've interviewed him a couple different times. He's one of those interviews where you have to, like, keep prodding him to get answers out of him. He doesn't elaborate. Like, he tries to answer questions with yes or no. Like, I just remember struggling with this guy, working with him in the industry in the past. And obviously his game ideas and his concepts are very creative and very unique. And often people who are very creative like that are kind of like that. A little bit aloof, a little bit off-putting for a lot of people. How do you think this affects Platinum?
Probably not that much, seeing as how they kind of don't do anything of note anymore. Yeah. Like, to me, I would imagine he's leaving to go do his own thing somewhere else where he's not bogged down by whatever's going on at Platinum, because they just sort of churn out mediocrity now for the most part. Every once in a while you get something interesting, but like I don't know, like Platinum is definitely, even by the standing, Platinum used to be like that kind of like held up as Platinum. There's like that you know, like people would just be, oh, they're the greatest thing, they make, nobody else makes it, and like that, you don't even get that from the weirdo fanboys anymore. Like, it's just like, yeah, they sort of fell off.
They have fallen off. I mean, if there's one studio that I think has fallen the most in the games industry in the last decade, it's Platinum. For me, at least personally, definitely Platinum, and I think generally too, it's Platinum.
Yeah, I mean, I was never that impressed by them to begin with. The certain games, like, you know, Nier Automata, whatever. Like those, like, I like the Nier games, but like, you know, everyone fawns and fusses over that Transformers game, and I thought that was garbage.
Yeah.
Like, it's just boring repetition. It's like, oh my god, they finally found a way to incorporate like, no, they didn't.
It's just a button masher.
They don't incorporate transformation at all. He turns into a truck and hits a guy during the combo. I can fucking care. Like, it's so...
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate, like, the presentation and the fact they, like, made it all cel-shaded as like a lost episode. They got, like, all the living voice actors that were still in the...
Yeah, there's
awesome.
Good parts.
But the game sucks. The game is a brainless button masher that wants you to grind literally hundreds of times through that story to afford, like, minor upgrades. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And yeah, that awful Avatar thing, and you know, the Ninja Turtles one was okay, I guess. It's just, you can't trust the quality out of them anymore, really.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, you have to sort of wait and be cautious, and that didn't used to be how they were.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this: Kamiya has created some pretty great franchises.
Yeah,
memorable.
Also, he seems to have a lot of good ideas that just don't end up coming through in execution. Like, I think Astral Chain has a lot of cool ideas. I just don't think any of it ever makes it to the page very well. Like, I wonder if he's just sort of frustrated with, maybe he wants to build his own kind of custom all-star team and sort of do his own thing, because he did say I'll still be doing Kamiya things.
Yeah.
So my guess is he's sort of striking out on his own to sort of get away from maybe whatever's. I don't know what's happening.
This is a blow to Platinum for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was their creative
and I imagine if they could find
much.
a way to keep him, they would.
Yeah.
But, so this is
I know that the letter that Platinum posted was gushing over him, basically, like saying he's amazing, he's awesome, like basically hinting that like this wasn't our decision, like we didn't want him to leave. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. He could end up at like a Nintendo or an Xbox or a PlayStation, where he becomes like creative lead for their Eastern development studio or whatever. Like, I felt he was headed that way ultimately anyway. So maybe this is him just making his move. I don't know. He's not like a whippersnapper anymore. He's got some years on him. So maybe he was just like, this is my time to make my career move, and this is what I'm going to do.
Maybe.
I'm surprised that he didn't have an announcement on the day that he left. But also, that's not generally something that Japanese developers do either. There's always like this little grace period from when they leave someplace and go to another one. Like, I can't remember any Japanese developer that was like, I'm leaving this place and I'm going here. It's always like, I'm leaving this place, and then like 3 weeks later or a month later, they're like, and by the way, I'm going over here now. I think it's, again, just a difference in how business is handled in Japan. There's a little more honor there, which we could probably use a little bit more of here in the United States. Another smaller story from this week. We got our first real look at Leslie Benzies of Rockstar and Grand Theft Auto fame's new game, Everywhere. And Matt, I don't think I could be more disappointed in this game. It is Roblox. So,
the Everywhere thing?
Yeah. This is what the guy who helped create what Grand Theft Auto ultimately became is working on now. It is a weird, like, MMO-ish, like, Roblox type thing where you create your own games and play other people's creations.
I mean, that's always what it said it was going to be. Like, this. I mean, it is very Roblox, just like, it looks like Roblox for older teenagers.
Yeah.
But, like...
And it looks like Fortnite. The art style is, like, basically a total ripoff of Fortnite. Like, I don't know. To me, one of the creative minds behind what Grand Theft Auto became, I expected more than just basically stealing the idea from somebody else.
Pretty much exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, after there was that last round of a beta where people were in the beta, and there was some reports that leaked out about that, and we talked about it here on GameFace, and that's when we started learning what it actually was. But still, like, there's supposed to be like single player stuff that they're building that you're going to be able to play through. This first gameplay trailer doesn't show any of that. Like, this is just them trying to say you can make whatever you want, blah blah blah. Like,
oh yeah, the teaser trailer was just dramatic nonsense. But it was obviously dramatic nonsense. So it is a bit of a downgrade to see what they show in that, in this art style in there, and then the scope of what they're trying to like sell you on in that teaser, and then you see this, you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Well, the last trailer that they put out, like, almost all the footage that they showed from the game looked realistic. Like, they even had a little clip of it in that trailer where they show like the realistic car burning out or whatever.
Although that car racing didn't look very good to begin with in terms of physics and stuff. Like, it doesn't surprise me that's what this is.
This game is going to flop.
Oh, yeah.
It's too late to compete with Roblox. I'm sorry. It's just...
Also, like, I don't think anyone wants to compete with Roblox at an audience beyond what the audience of Roblox. One of the reasons Roblox works is that audience has the time to do that shit.
Yeah.
And I think the older you get, the less your free time is there. And I don't, there's certainly people that do, mods and yada yada, but like, who wants to do that?
Yeah.
Who wants to go dig through all this crap to find, like, if you were going to do that, you're talking about the model being Dreams, and I guarantee you Dreams had more flexibility than whatever this thing's going to have.
Yeah.
So I don't see the point.
Yeah, I don't either. I think it's going to flop horribly. And it could be another case where Leslie Benzie's studio, one and done, like the striking distance with Callisto Protocol. Like, you go all in, spend all your investors' money, get no return on the investment, nobody wants to invest in you anymore, and you got to go and try to find something else. So, anyway, disappointing to me to see Leslie Benzie's new game.
It just feels years behind the curve.
It is. Yep. And what's going to happen is it's going to launch, stuff's going to be half broken, they're going to struggle for a year and a half trying to get all that stuff fixed, they're not going to be able to add new stuff for people to make it. It's going to be a mess.
Oh, less time than that.
Yeah.
This thing will fold in a year.
Maybe. We'll see. So anyway, there you go. That's Leslie Benzie's Everywhere. Not looking too good. Next, we found out And I'm curious to get your take on this, Matt. So we found out this week that Modern Warfare 3, the upcoming new Call of Duty that launches here in about a month and a half now, 2 months. There is a...
What is it? When is it?
End of October, early November.
Yeah, that's a month.
Yeah, a month. Yeah, a month and a half, roughly. So coming up quick. One of the finishing moves in Mortal Kombat, in Modern Warfare 3, is a bong hit. So the player does a bong hit and then blows it in the face of the enemy and it kills him. Like, I don't know. Like,
he's allergic.
I guess. Like, how do you feel about stuff like this, Matt? Bringing like drug culture into games, and do you think that's something that that developers should be doing? I mean, I think it's this unwritten, unstated thing that I think a lot of people just assume that a lot of gamers smoke weed or do drugs or whatever.
It's not, I don't know if it's assumed so much as no.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the gamer tags, all the 420s that you see in the gamer tags. Is it good for the industry to buy into that and go with it, or do you think the industry should be trying to deflect from that stuff a little bit?
I don't think it matters.
No?
No. It's an M-rated game. Who cares?
It is.
Do whatever you want. It's stupid, but a lot of those finisher things are stupid. So
I mean, I don't even care about the fin. I
forgot they were in them until I saw a video of it yesterday of somebody doing a couple of them. I was like, "Oh right, you can do that in Warzone."
Well, I told you about when my nephew visited, and that's all he wanted to do was do the gory finishers. He didn't care about anything else. So to some people, that stuff is really important.
Yeah, haven't there been like pot leaves as icons? Yeah, thing forever.
I mean they've done partnerships with Snoop Dogg. Like, it's not the first time for sure. I mean, it's the first time that they've ever insinuated that weed could kill you. But
yeah, I mean, I don't understand that.
Yeah, because that's literally never happened in the history of civilization. No one's ever died.
They should breathe in on him, and then he should suddenly change and hug you, and then you stab him in the back of the neck.
That would be great, actually.
That would be my weed.
That would be more realistic, for sure. I just wonder, how much responsibility these developers and publishers have to
zero
kind of defend or protect the industry. Zero. Yeah.
Defend it from what? It's legal mostly now.
Like, it is.
There's nothing there. I'm
just saying negative press. There's certain outlets out there that'll get a hold of this story and they'll run some salacious bullcrap on it.
Nobody cares. It's M-rated. It's fine.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
If you don't like it, don't let your kid play it.
Just thought I'd bring it up. It just kind of struck me as odd. I was like, that's weird. It's also weird, too.
I mean, it's a dumb idea for a finisher, but that's about as far as I'll go with it.
Okay. And then finally, we're going to talk about Cyberpunk 2077 2.0. As I said at the beginning of the show, we're not going to discuss the new DLC, Phantom Liberty. We're just going to discuss the complete overhaul of the base game now that Matt and I have both had some time to download it and fiddle with it. First of all, the first thing I would say is, I've been experiencing it on PlayStation 5. And by the way, if you own Cyberpunk 2077, you can download version 2.0 completely free. So you don't have to pay any money to get the new... It's not even a new engine, though, really, is it?
It's a new lighting trick. It's a new way of doing the ray tracing denoising.
Yeah. That basically gives you a lot of the features that you thought you were going to get in all PlayStation 5 games, and here we are 3 years later, and we're getting it in hardly any PlayStation 5
Although
games.
The big change is the complete revamp of how the game skill systems work.
Yeah, which we'll get to in a second. But I think what most people care about first are the visuals.
They shouldn't,
you're right. Because the big change is to the...
Yeah. To be honest, unless you have a super-powered PC, you're not going to notice a huge change in the visuals.
And that's what I was getting at. So having played it on PlayStation 5, I'm honestly disappointed that it doesn't look better than it does. It also does, this dynamic...
I think it looks about as good as it can look.
It probably does, yeah. It does this, dynamic resolution scaling where it will jump from, 4K to 1080p to 720p to 21p. It jumps all over the place, and you can see it. It creates, these little... I don't know how to explain it. Almost like these little minor, disturbances in the image that you can pick up on. Almost like pixie dust is, sprinkling on the screen a little bit.
Yeah, that's a mix of the resolution change and the denoiser.
Yeah.
You still, even on my PC, you still see a little bit of that around characters that are in smoke or fog.
That makes sense.
Little sparkling. And it used to be more. You used to see a lot more of it through, dark walls. Or the seams on the cars would have that.
Yeah.
The new denoiser, the ray path tracing or something like that. It makes that a lot cleaner on PC. It's
on Matt's rig, by the way. It looks like maybe the best looking video game ever.
If you're walking around at night in the rain in the city, it is probably the best looking video game of all time.
It's pretty insane.
If you're driving at full speed in the Badlands during the day, it's just like level of detail pop in the game.
Yeah.
It goes from the top of the top to the middle of the pack sometimes. They just do not, between the way the engine like loads in more detail and the way the denoiser high reses things as you get in, especially billboards and freeway signs.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not. I can understand, I think, why they're building a new engine, because it seems like they just haven't been able to find a way around to make it stream detail in fast enough to keep up with
the
car
speed of the
speeds.
vehicles. Yeah.
If you're just walking around town or running around town, amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing. Like, I started over. I started a new game, and just basically burned through it to get to the point where Phantom Liberty will be available as a quest.
Yep.
Which isn't too far in, honestly. It's not that far. But like, and I will say, if you are going to play Phantom Liberty, make sure you have either body or technical ability at least 18. Because you don't need to be that high level to tackle it, but it does want you to use those skills to make life easier for you a couple of times, and you definitely want one of those in play. I did not when I started, and I ended up going back and leveling up some more and coming back when I had 18 in technical ability.
Ah, gotcha.
Like, even like scenes that I've seen, 7 times, because I played the beginning of this game a few times because of the problems at launch and restarting when on another platform, because obviously the consoles weren't working very well. So I switched to PC, and then I started it again on the new PC later when they revamped things, and I've done it again. Even scenes that I've seen several times look very different with the new way they, like the scene where you first meet Dexter. It felt like oh, this is what you wanted this to look like originally. Like his face is still kind of in shadow. You can sort of see his size and shape.
Even on PS5, I got that vibe too.
Like you can't really see what he's saying, but like his face lights up from the light of the cigar when he takes a drag. Like it's very noir.
It's a lot more dramatic.
It feels very intentional.
Yeah.
So yeah, like there's moments where some of these characters' faces, the lighting on them is unreal. Like, and I don't mean not even Unreal, because Unreal doesn't even look that good yet. But like,
yes, that's the truth.
But like things where like you're just it's nighttime in the rain, and you're watching people walk down the sidewalk, and they're holding like those colored neon umbrellas, and they're looking at their phone, and the neon umbrellas bathing them in purple light, and the phone is bathing them in blue light, and the blue and the purple are mixing on their face, and like you see reflections of them, and you can see the actual umbrella and everything in detail on the reflection of the puddle, and then outside the puddle where there's dry ground, there's still like a purple haze from the reflection of the thing. It's
amazing.
Ridiculous. You can read signs and billboards in the reflections of car
That's
doors.
That's a huge deal.
Like,
that's a huge. That's the problem is these little things take so much processing
power, and like. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, does this make the game better? No. But does your brain notice it? And does it translate into this like very real location? Yeah, like it does. It does make some kind of aesthetic difference, which is impressive.
Yeah. Let's talk about the upgrade and the perk changes, because I'll be honest with you, Matt, I was almost like overwhelmed by.
It's a complete. I'll say that I'm not a huge fan of this game. I felt like it left me very cold. I have not played Starfield in a week because I played this game for 45 hours.
Yeah.
This feels like a completely different game to play.
It really does. I know we can say it all we want, but we're being honest. Like, it really does feel like completely different. Like, you can shape who your character is so much better now than you could before. Yeah.
Well, and also
you can really hone in on exactly what you want your character to be.
They also haven't locked dumb shit behind the skill tree. Like, the crafting is not locked behind the top tier skill,
right?
Which was always stupid.
Yeah.
Almost every perk. So like it works kind of the way it used to, where you level up the individual attributes, and then as you get, I think it's 4, 9, 15. And 20 are the levels of the skill trees on each attribute, and I think you can level up. I think the level cap is 60 now, so you can get 3 maxed out. Mm-hmm. Like every single perk, and then so the perks for the skill tree. Every single perk is a dramatic change. Every single perk is a tangible and it's a tangible upgrade or a new ability or something you're going to feel the difference of immediately. It's not like the old skill tree where it's like 3% more damage on your quick hack,
and you never feel it.
No, it's like stuff that's like, oh wow, look at that, like that. That's going to change how I approach combat now.
Yeah, they're meaningful upgrades.
You can mix in, and like the other thing that I think is great is so they've separated out. You still have street smarts as a separate like upgrade tree, which is funny to me because all you get from the street smarts upgrades are very minor percentage discounts at stores. So each 5 you get 1%. In the end, you get 15% off in stores if you max street smarts out. That's all you get.
Yay.
But there's a bunch of other skills that level up. So there's a headhunter, netrunner, solo, which turns out to be just like solo is like just like heavy weaponry and close-up melee combat. I don't know why it's called. That's a cyberpunk thing. That's just what solo means. I might be named after a character. Engineering, which is crafting and disassembling things. And there's one other one. Shinobi, which is certain guns and stealth. Those all continually level up from what you do. So like if you're using shotguns or melee, you'll get solo.
Yeah, that part's still there. And I like that. That's one of the things I like.
Every 5 levels you get a bonus from that. You get more perks from that. You get big change. Like engineering, you can end up carrying hundreds more pounds of items in your inventory. But the key is you're always getting those and you get more XP. Basically you no longer have the thing from the original version of the game where you do all these side jobs, and after like 5 side jobs or gigs you'd be like halfway up to the next level. You're constantly leveling up, you're constantly getting something, you're constantly being rewarded for what you're doing. You get way more money from doing everything. Some stuff costs more, but like you feel like you're getting way more money and you're progressing more. Like you have $100,000 in the space of the first 4 hours of the game, where that used to take like 15 hours maybe. You just feel like you feel like you're doing something all the time. Even they haven't really even revamped like how kind of bland a lot of the side jobs are or the gigs are, but
they didn't really change stuff like that.
You're properly rewarded now.
Right.
Like you feel even if you don't, and your rare loot is more common. Rare clothing is way more common because the clothing A weighs almost nothing now, and B does not contribute to your stats. You can wear whatever the hell you want.
It's also worth a ton of money. Like that's where I make a lot of my money, selling clothes.
I make most of my money selling weapons
and clothes. And
like, but you can use the clothes. Like the clothes are just whatever you want to wear. Some of them have like little bonuses for things. Like Netrunner suits will give you like quick hack bonuses or whatever. But generally, you can wear whatever the hell you want, which is how it always should have been because it's a cyberpunk game, and you should be choosing the look of your character. Is a very specific choice. All your stat upgrades come from cyberware now, which is vastly improved.
It helps you shape like how you
shape everything, what you can do. Everything's much more straightforward in terms of what it is, how you upgrade it. The upgrade materials are more straightforward. Like crafting stuff is more straightforward. Like they just streamlined it all.
It feels like the game that they would have made if they weren't rushed. Ultimately,
if they'd been able to like really sit back and think about it, take the time and think
about it, play it a little more, understand how players are going to play it. I mean, it's kind of a cliche. I'm sure you've seen it all over the internet or Twitter or wherever you are on social media that this is the game that it should have been at launch. It's a cliche because it is true. Like this is really the game that I kind of thought it was going to be when I played it for the first time 3 years ago. So again, it's a free upgrade. So if you're somebody who bought Cyberpunk 2077 3 years ago and you played like 5 hours of it and you're like, oh, this thing is busted, and you're ready to give it another go now, it's the perfect time.
It's much more fun.
That's a good way to put it.
Like that, it's more fun. Like I didn't have a lot of fun playing this game before, and now it is more fun. My issues with the story remain. They still don't really know what Cyberpunk is because the punk is sort of left out, and that continues in the expansion in very hilarious ways, which we'll get to next week. But like. In general, like I had a really good time playing it, which is not something I can say about Cyberpunk before. Like,
and you hadn't finished it before either. Like,
I still haven't. But like, I'm further than I ever got before. I probably played it more this week than I've played it total previously
in all the years. 3 years since.
And I really enjoyed it, and like, even with my caveats on certain things, like I am forced at this point to admit that I don't think female V is a very good voice performance.
Yeah.
Which I think is weird because that actress is very, very good most of the time. I just don't believe anything that comes out of her mouth. V sounds like she's lying.
It could be writing, though, that does that, too.
Some of it. I mean, a lot of the writing is stiff in places. Some of that's stylized due to the setting, but some of it is just like, how can you deliver that line believably? You can't, really.
Yeah, I think some of it is maybe some ESL stuff, English as a second language.
Yeah, but like, yeah, overall, you know, and I still believe very strongly, especially after seeing that montage again, that you were originally supposed to play through those 6 months of getting to know Jackie and coming up in the city. Because there's so many specific things in that montage where I'm like, that's a designed character that got thrown into a car there. Like that was clearly supposed to be someone that we sort of made our name through. That getting to the point to know T-Bug and meeting her, and then she's your connection to Dex. Like that's the flow there. And I'll be honest, if one day they decided to go back and add that part, I would play it again. Yeah, to do that part.
I'll say this. It is amazing how much I still cared about him in the limited amount of time that I spent with him in the game. Like, I still cared.
I will say this, going through this again, like and maybe it's just because I picked different dialogue choices, but like, I didn't like him very much in this.
Really?
Like, he was kind of a dick.
Interesting.
I'm not sure what the difference is, and like once you get, even when you get, maybe it's just me getting older and changing, coming back, because part of it I guess I didn't recognize. Here's one of the interesting things about the detail on this version of, you know, the upgraded path tracing thing, and it reveals a lot more detail in things, including the characters' faces. Like I said, they're good.
The nuance.
And one of the things, this was an interesting thing, where the scene early on where like you meet him right after the first thing, and you meet him outside where he borrows your car and he's sitting at the noodle stand and you go sit down with him. In that scene, all of a sudden I could see how old he was. In that, which wasn't there before. And Digital Foundry even pointed this out. Later I watched that video and I'm like, Digital Foundry saw it too. He's got all these lines under his eyes
that you couldn't see before.
He's older and I'm like, he's way older than V. Like V's like 22, 23.
Right. Oh yeah.
He's like in his 30s.
I picked up on that he was older.
I figured out he's older, but I didn't realize how beat down he. I mean, he's older. He looks older than he is.
Rough life, man. It'll age you.
And there's an element of rushing into this job head first, which like. And in the previous playthroughs, I kind of felt like, he's just like V. They're hungry for this. They wanted to. I didn't quite get until this time, and seeing that on his face, that like, you think this is your last shot?
Yeah.
Like he thinks
you're the young punk giving him his last chance.
Yeah, and like so I'm like, okay, that's it. But it also like. You're even dumber to me now.
That's why I cared about him, though. I could see he was like on his last like run or whatever.
But like then that also made me pick slightly different dialogue choices, especially in the elevator.
Everything,
and he just doesn't see it. Yeah. He's too blinded by it. And then of course you have to deal with his mother later.
Right.
And you're like, you know, and even that where it's like, I was a little more honest in the Ofrenda scene, and she didn't like that very much. I'm just like, I'm like because there's things you can pick where it's just like, he loved life, all he wanted, like bullshit.
Yeah,
that's not what he didn't love life. All that mattered to him was his friend. Those are the things I picked in previous playthroughs, and this time like he wanted it, he went for it, and he died because of it.
Yeah,
and that's who he really was. Yeah. That's the truth. Yeah. And like all the gang members appreciated it, but the family did not appreciate it. I also didn't pick up before that he's the last remaining of her kids.
Yeah,
that he was like. They all the others died.
It's a rough existence. Yeah.
But that's Night City for you.
It is.
So.
Yep. So
it's funny that like so I guess I contradict myself there. Where I'm like, does it add to the game that the graphics look good? But it did add to Jackie.
It changed
to see that on his face. Yeah. So that is a different thing. It did change my perspective on a character, not for the better, really. But again, like it must be gratifying for CD Projekt Red, where it's like suddenly the detail you put into these characters is finally coming through.
Yeah. That's true.
The other thing I'll say is if you run the game at 4K with everything maxed out on my PC, it runs at about 34 frames a second. If you turn on DLSS, it runs at 87.
Not surprised.
So DLSS is
wizardry.
Is the future.
That's all we know. Nintendo knows that better than anyone. So there you go. That's Cyberpunk 2077 2.0. Again, free download. If you have the game already, you can download it for free. As Matt and I just explained, it changes the game drastically. We both believe for the better. And then next week, we'll get back with you guys, and we'll talk about the last DLC for Cyberpunk 2077. And with that, it's time to hear a word from our sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Crémasse, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted. So oddly enough, my aunt is in town right now, Matt. She works for Kraft as like a lawyer or whatever, and she's in LA meeting with corporate blah, blah, blah for the whole week. She's never been here before. She's 60. She's about to retire. She's like 63 or whatever. And anyway, she's coming over to our place on Thursday. She's never seen our place. She's never been to LA before. And what am I going to do? I'm going to mix her up a drink with LS Cream because she loves to drink. And she'll be coming off happy hour with her boss when she meets up with us. So I'm excited to mix her a drink with LS Cream. If you're interested in mixing up a drink with LS Cream, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's SIFTD. There's again, I say it every week, but I'm not exaggerating. It is one of the most awesome websites for a liqueur I have ever seen. It has everything there you need. If you're interested, you can figure out how to buy it online. You can figure out where to buy it locally. There's awesome drink recipes. Awesome stuff at creamls.com/sifted. And with that, it's time to kick off the show proper. However, I think we do have a couple questions that we should have answered before we moved on. One of them was from Schneeky. He asks, he says, I've got 15 hours invested in Cyberpunk 2077, but I don't want to start it again to get the new perks. How does that work?
You just reset all your stuff, and you'll have to buy them out on the new trees.
Yeah, just respecs, basically. It's just like choosing respec in any other RPG. So they figured it out. They know there's a lot of people like you. I had already finished the game. And
yeah, the other thing is... the other thing they do add, each attribute gets a vehicle-related perk now, which is at level 1, like at the bottom. Like, you don't need to upgrade the attribute to get that, but it makes dealing with the vehicle combat later in the expansion easier, but isn't very useful outside of the expansion. Yeah. So I would argue that if you are playing the game without the expansion, you can ignore those.
Yeah. Yep, that's a good way to put it. And then Noxatornitis asks if I'm playing at the 60 or 30 frame mode. So I almost always play on the 30 frame mode. 90% of games, I always choose the quality over the frame rate. This game is a first-person shooter, so I started out at 30 frames to make it look better, to check it out, and then when I started getting into actually playing it, I set it to the 60 frames per second. So in shooters, it matters a little more to me than in other genres. So yeah, I actually tried them both, but now that I'm actually playing it, I'm playing it in the 60 frames mode. So when you're just playing it on whatever mode you want because you have this beastly PC.
Right. Well, I have it capped at 60. Yeah. 60's fine.
Yep, that's more than fine. Okay, it's time to get on with the show proper. We're going to kick things off with what we mentioned earlier, which was the biggest game at Tokyo Game Show 2023. And in all honesty, it might be the biggest game from now until when it comes out in like February on Leap Day, no less. And that is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This week, it has been a gigantic blowout of this game. For those of you who may not remember, it is the second entry in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. You think it's going to be a trilogy ultimately? That's where we're going to end up with just 3 of them? That'd be my guess, too.
I think if this really finished the story, they'd be bragging about that by now.
Yeah. And I'm just going to tell you, I don't know if you've been on Sifted or whatever, this game has just been blown out for the last week by Square Enix, which is so weird because it's still like 5 months away from release. To get a blowout like this, like Square Enix, for example, sent me a 30-minute chunk of gameplay from the beginning of the game. Just 30 minutes. And like, I'm just like, okay. Like, that's like, that never happens. Like, nobody ever does that. Like, a publisher sends out a big chunk of gameplay like that for you to use for B-roll to cut up and do whatever you want to do with it. Usually it's like 15 minutes, maybe.
Well, they just seem to be pretty confident on this one.
They seem exceedingly confident on this one. So the whole game, this is the beginning of it, by the way. So this game starts, and you're basically opening the door. You're leaving Midgar for the first time. It is You're leaving, what is that called? Mithril Cave? Is that right?
Sure.
I think that I think that's what it's called, if I remember correctly.
You understand I haven't played this game since 1997.
Me too.
Right?
I mean, me too. But I think that's what it was called, was Mithril Cave. So you're leaving Midgar. And generally how the old game worked was you left Midgar and then you went to like the overworld map, which was just this like 2D thing that you would just traverse to get to your next destination.
No, it was like a normal map or something. It was like a big... It was like, you remember, we're just going to rotate it in front of you.
Yeah.
Like a fake globe.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and then you'd have to find points of interest.
Right.
Like hammering the X button.
Well, in this, instead of going to that big overworld map, although there is a big overworld map that you can pull up whenever you want to.
Yeah, I'm sure this is going to use the big open area and then traverse the map to get to the next area.
You actually do the traveling in real time in 3D from one location to the next. And if you remember, I think your next stop is Junon or whatever. It's like the city that's owned or run by the bad guys.
That's like your next main
stop. It's been so long. It's hard for me to remember.
There's some things in the middle. There's Red 13's village and things like that.
Right. And if you haven't been able to pick up on it yet from the footage that you're watching, it's Cloud, Aerith, Tifa, Barrett, and Red 13. Red 13 is now a playable character in the game, which was not a thing in the original game. And it's really weird. There's like some...
Well, not at this point.
Right. There's footage of him riding a chocobo in this B-roll, which is just one of the most bizarre things I have ever seen. He's like, it's like a dog saddled up on a big chicken. It's like, the other thing I would say too about this in general is that I love that Square Enix has just decided that like wacky is okay. Like, I think a lot of the charm
don't really
of this,
have an option with this game.
No,
because people forget, but it did get pretty weird at times.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it got freaking weird. I thought.
I mean, at one point they wake a vampire up and he joins them. Like,
right.
It's like there's no.
But it looks like this, just like the first remake. It does kind of the same thing. It expands like smaller sections of the original game into bigger things in this one, like full-blown, like for example, like the overworld map is now a full-blown pseudo open world area that you actually traverse. But then it also makes like small but significant changes to key moments from those games as well. And I feel like
that's cool. There was nothing in the first one that was like that far-reaching just in terms of visual.
Yeah. How do you feel about this? Just like the venturing out in the open world. The traversal looks a little weird.
It does look a little stiff.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked it in 16.
Yeah.
But, like, who knows? Like, I didn't like the first one very much.
Neither one of us did.
And I don't really expect to feel any different about this one. But it looks like they're doing... I mean, if this is basically the way I think you should do adapting the original into this form of game. So, I mean... I don't have a criticism of it. This is what they should do, and they did it. I mean, there were some people that were worried it was going to be like, oh, just pick a thing on a map and there you are. And it looks like they went for a more, like I'm not 100% convinced there's not going to be jumping from map to map because it looks like this is not a big enough map to contain the entire rest of this part of the game.
Oh no, it's not.
But like,
people haven't figured out yet though if the territories, if you're going to just get zapped to them, or if you're actually going to travel, like in.
Well,
this
clearly
build,
you take some kind of a train to the gold saucer.
Right.
So I imagine there's going to be some kind of transition between things.
In this build right now, there's invisible walls between the regions.
Yeah.
So people are confused. They're like, are those going to stay there in the final game? Or are they going to disappear? And then you can just run into that area. Nobody really knows.
You're going to have to go down certain roads to get to exit points, basically.
But basically, it's not an open world game. It's very much like the last two God of War games, where there's these, as you're seeing right now, there's these big open areas that you can play in, but ultimately there are load times that load in new areas and things like that. So I feel like they're trying to strike a balance between the old and the new, and I feel like God of War did the same thing. They're like, we're not going to go all in on open world stuff, but we're going to make it seem like an open world at times. We're going to make it seem like a more directed...
I mean, 9 times out of 10, that's good enough.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's not like there was anything to actually do in the overworld in the original game, so this is already an upgrade.
Well, there's a lot to do out in the open areas now, which is kind of crazy, like some of the stuff that you can do. Well, let's talk about, let's see how we want to talk. Let's talk about the open world a little more. So, as we talked about, it's kind of like God of War, but it's big enough that they give you mounts and they give you vehicles. So, obviously...
There's some melody.
Well, right now what's happening is that Chocobo is taking you to a Chocobo stop.
Yeah.
And as you lift that pole, that unlocks a fast travel point. So all the fast travel points in the game are chocobo stops. And if you find a chocobo chick like that and you follow it, it will take you to the stop where you can open up a new fast travel point. So
somebody like Ghost of Tsushima, I see.
Yeah. I mean, there's
following the fox.
I think you can see a lot of influences of a lot of different games in this. That's
wise to let you pet the chocobo.
Yeah, they let you pet the chocobo, which people would freak out about if that were not the case.
Yeah, another nice thing in Cyberpunk 2.0 is you can pet. There's cats around town. You can pet them all now, not just your own cat.
Yep, that's true. And then the thing about the chocobos, you can upgrade
carry
them.
Cushions with you to rest on these uncomfortable benches.
Yeah,
that's funny.
There's all kinds of little stuff like that in this game that has pleasantly surprised me, to be honest. Like stuff that I never dreamed would be in a Final Fantasy.
Everyone else stands around and watches you relax
on your little pad. So anyway, these chocobo stops, they create the fast travel points in the game, so you'll be able to get around pretty quickly. But again, also there's mounts. And the chocobo, when you first start out, they're just a way to get somewhere quickly on the ground. But eventually, you get chocobo that can fly, which is bizarre. Have you seen the footage of the chocobo flying?
Yeah. I mean, they've always looked weird flying.
Yeah. I mean, it makes no sense from a physics perspective. And then also, the chocobo, eventually you get one that can run up vertical walls.
Yep.
Which looks even more strange.
All straight out of the original.
Yeah.
Like that was, I mean, you spent hours breeding those fuckers to get those abilities.
Yeah.
Going to get that gold chocobo.
Yep. You can also, you find chocobo plumes throughout the game. You use those to upgrade the chocobo armor. To summon any of your mounts, including the chocobos or vehicles, you just tap the R1 button. And again, you can, if you just want to fast travel everywhere, you can just use the chocobo stops to do that. Once you're out in the open world, they do give you some stuff to make use of that space. One of the mission objectives out in the open areas is kind of like Monster Hunter. They're called hunt missions, and basically they're combat trials where you have to defeat a group of enemies before a timer runs out, while also completing a checklist of challenges. So it kind of hones in on the combat and forces you to become better at the combat in the game, which I think is interesting.
Or in my case, guarantees I will never do any of that because no interest in being timed.
Well, you can also go back and replay them if you want to. Like if you don't get all the mission objectives in the amount of time that they give you.
You can go back and do them easily when they're no longer valuable to you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Out-leveled them.
Oh, I should have also mentioned earlier, and you guys may have figured this out already by looking at the trailers, but you also play Sephiroth, which is something that wasn't in the original game either. So they're, again, expanding things in certain ways to make it different while still adhering. There are cutscenes in this that are like word for word, shot for shot from the original as well. Mm-hmm. So
and then there's scenes that are completely new.
That are completely new. There are other scenes.
Well, it is a different timeline or whatever they're doing with this.
Yep. There's also crafting. You can craft items like potions and Phoenix Downs. So you've already seen in this B-roll, there's just various herbs and things out in the environment that you need to collect, and you can use those to craft your potions and your Phoenix Downs. And then let's talk about the combat in this. At first blush, it looks identical to the first remake, which was basically this system where you chip the enemy down until you staggered them, and then you unloaded. And that was pretty much the flow of combat. Now, that still remains the same. It still combines real-time attacks and moving with issuing party commands when their action meters get full. So basically how it works is you control yourself, but you can also have some influence over your party members. You have to watch their meters. Once they get to a certain point, you can slow down time to like a crawl, and then go through their menus, choose their attack, and then they can attack. So you do have some semblance of agency over your party members in this, which was something that you did not have in Final Fantasy 16. So some people may... And I'll be honest with you, that was something I felt was a little bit missing in Final Fantasy 16.
I didn't.
You didn't miss it at all?
I prefer to concentrate on one character.
Okay.
In that. Because I didn't think the babysitting of the different characters in Remake worked very well. Like they didn't do what I wanted when I wanted them to. I did not have the patience to learn how to like fine-tune that system. Mm-hmm. And just didn't care. Like, I'm real tired of the wear a meter down so then you can wear another meter down thing. Like, and I think Square does it in the most boring way, like on a regular basis. Even 16 suffered from that to some degree. Although it for whatever reason, 16 felt like it took way less time to break guard than
I'd agree.
Final Fantasy VII did.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. Like I understand the appeal of the system, but like Square takes it too far and have been taking it too far in this series in particular since 13.
Yeah. There are tweaks to the combat, though. It's not exactly like the first remake. The object is still the same. Still chip down the enemies until you stagger them. Then you unload with your limit breaks, which are basically your over-the-top, most powerful attacks. However, there's something called new synergy skills, which let you team up with party members for more powerful combos that you perform by holding R1, and then you either tap the triangle or the square. So, I don't know. Based upon the footage of it that I saw in this B-roll that Square Enix sent us, it was really hard for me to tell the difference. Like, that versus just spamming the square without holding the R1. I mean, it's a whole other list of attacks, so it does give you a little bit more variety. It's kind of hard to see it when it's happening, that there's much of a difference from the normal combat. However, there are things called synergy abilities that are available if two characters have maxed out the synergy gauge, and then basically it's a 2-character limit break. So a 2-character like finishing move where you team up with someone else in the party, and those are pretty cool. Now, I will say this. They're a little bit like, what are those attacks in Mortal Kombat 1 that's cinematic and you can't skip them in the middle of fights?
The Fatal Blow.
Yeah, the Fatal Blows. It's a lot like that. Like, there are these elaborate cinematics that play out, and I could see where after a while you may hope that there's an option to turn those off, those cinematics. I doubt that there will be.
It's funny that in the more like highly detailed way of presenting this, it's just more and more obvious. It's like, Aerith, you should really change clothes. Like, you should have pants on while we're doing
it. It is a little absurd, yeah. But I mean,
do you have any idea how many ticks she's going to have on her ankles after this? Like, you got to dress for the job.
I mean, this is kind of what the fans want, though, don't you think?
Oh yeah, like there'd be hell to pay if she changed into like some kind of hiking outfit.
Imagine what would happen.
Oh, the mutinies in the streets.
The whole world would burn down.
Square really would be sold.
Sneaky Ass is their Chocobo Armor DLC. I don't know if there's DLC for armor, but again, as I mentioned earlier, you do upgrade their armor with the plumes.
Keep an eye on your pre-order bonuses.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there probably will be. I mean, I'm guessing there's going to be cosmetics for everyone that you can pay real money for if you want to. Hopefully there's some way to earn it in-game without having to pay real money. But anyway, the synergy abilities, again, they're basically like a 2-character team-up finishing move that you can pull off.
God, the LOD pop-in is insane.
Yeah. That's their engine. I mean, that's kind of the way it is, unfortunately.
Like, the ground clutter is just, like, clearly beyond...
Well, he's creeping. I'm like, hey, you can't move any more slowly in a game, and still it's, like, popping in.
When he rolled across the little clearing there, just all the dandelions just suddenly...
appeared.
Came into existence.
Yep. There's also new materia in this, beyond the materia that was in the last remake. And basically, if you don't remember, or if you didn't play the first remake, they're basically just things that give you combat buffs. They do some other stuff as well, but generally, that's what they do the most. And then generally, I found the on-foot traversal to look a little awkward, but again, you have like mounts and you have vehicles and you have fast travel points. Like, I don't know that that's probably gonna be a moot point ultimately, whether the traversal on foot looks good or doesn't look good, or works well or doesn't work well. I don't think it'll be a big element in the game once you get used to the fast travel and all the other ways that you can travel that are in the game. So
didn't expect the Gishal greens to be red.
Yeah.
But
how are you feeling about this, Matt?
Oh, I don't care.
You don't care?
I don't like this game very much. I didn't like the remake very much. I didn't like the original all that much. Whatever. Like, I'm glad people who like this game are finally getting this remake they wanted. Mm-hmm. It still feels weird to me to break it up into all these chunks.
Yeah.
I wonder if once the third one's out, they'll do some sort of like unification pack where
probably.
like
reunion.
That's probably gonna be the subtitle of the third one. Reunion.
You're right. Yeah,
because they've called other Final Fantasy things. Like that was the Reunion was the name of like that spin-off thing they did too back in the day. I don't know. I'm curious how well it will hang together with the first one.
It's coming on 2 discs, but they said you install both discs at once. It's not like you play for a while and then swap the discs. Those days are gone.
Just to hold that much data for the install.
Yeah.
Which will be overwritten by the day one patch anyway, so it doesn't matter.
I'm like you, Matt. I thought Final Fantasy VII, the OG version, was overrated back in the day. I played it. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was like mind-blowing.
That was fine.
I didn't really like the remake at all. I think I played it for like 20 hours and then I quit.
I haven't seen any shimmying yet, so that's good.
That's true, but I'm guessing that's in there too, Matt. I'm just being honest.
Maybe. I'm sure we'll end up in some dungeons or something.
But I'll say this. This looks way more interesting to me than the first remake.
It does.
Just being outside changes everything.
It's still Final Fantasy
Instead
VII.
of being in those dingy, steel, gilded corridors in the last one, like, that's what turned me off after a while. The game just felt oppressive. Like,
it was very samey.
Yeah.
This is more. Well, again, like I didn't really like the combat either.
Me either. It didn't keep my attention. It just the enemies just felt like damaged sponges. There's just way too many hit points. Like boss fights, it's like you hit them with your most powerful attack, and like you can see one pixel go off their health bar. Like I just don't like games like that.
Well, and it's also like
I
know it's like all this stuff I know. It's like, okay, I know there's a way to beat you in like 5 seconds, but I don't know what it is, and I don't particularly care to learn.
Yeah,
you know,
so I can go online and like Google it, which I hate doing.
I don't mind doing that, but it's just like I don't like. For whatever reason, my head just never got around like the ins and outs of this combat system to the point where like a lot of times this stuff is like, oh, I look this up. Okay, that's how that works. All right, so the next time I run into an enemy that's giving me trouble, I'll try like to use this or some adaptation of this, and it'll work. And that just never happened in this game. I always had to relook. I'm like, oh, you have to do that? Okay, how would I learn that? I said learn that by failing and then reloading the save, which I'm like, I don't have fucking time for that.
Yeah.
I just don't care. You know, I know there's people that get really good at this game, the previous game, and like we're posting all the combo videos and stuff, and it's just like, cool. I just want to play it.
Yeah.
I don't need to treat. I don't want to treat this like a fucking college course. Like, it doesn't deserve that, frankly. It's fine. I'd honestly rather just watch a compilation of the cutscenes, probably.
I mean, again, I am more excited for this than I was the last remake. I mean,
it's definitely more in my wheelhouse than the first one was, in terms of like what you're doing. But also, I feel like I've done a lot of action-based JRPG and a semi-open world thing recently. Like between this and between like Tales of Arise and the Xenoblade games. And probably like 3 other things. It's just like, what is here? And Final Fantasy 16 itself, it's like, what is here that I haven't already done? And what would entice me to want to play this other than being a giant Final Fantasy VII fanboy? And my answer to that is nothing.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of Final Fantasy 15 too, honestly, the way the combat works and like
somewhat. I mean, I think inevitably you're going to feel the need to make that comparison to any open world like Square Enix like Final Fantasy thing, just because of 15 being the first. I don't know if that's 100% fair, because Final Fantasy 15 failed so horribly on all of those counts, and I will freely say that in the end I think I like Remake better than 15. I admit I didn't play 15 after they quote unquote fixed it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's hypocritical in the sense that I did play Cyberpunk after they fixed it, but Cyberpunk was a lot more engaging even in its vanilla form than Final Fantasy 15 ever was to me. I don't know. It's just so much time and effort and money committed to a giant, bloated, 3-part for no particularly great reason remake of a game I really just thought was kind of average in the first place.
The other thing too about the combat in the first remake was I felt completely disconnected from it. Like, you have to hit something like 8,000 times before it dies. There's never any damage to the creatures. There's very little response to your attacks. It's like you're attacking like a paper mache, like pinata. Like, it doesn't feel like the enemies react to the attacks. I didn't feel like I was getting good tactile feedback from my attacks. It just felt like I was just watching these pre-canned animations of these insane like flipping sword swipes that like weren't doing anything. I don't know.
I always felt like I was missing something.
Yeah, it just felt like it just wasn't connected.
I'm like, why did the limit break do like nothing to that
guy?
Right.
Because again, the enemies in this game, they're all bullets, they're all damage sponges. They can take way too much damage, way more damage than they should be able to take. Like, and then there's just, I don't know, like all the cutscenes with the characters out in the open world, they just seem weird and like they're just very Square Enix, old school Square Enix, old school Final Fantasy, which we've talked about.
I mean, this looks very. I mean, honestly, it looks like Final Fantasy 16, where a lot of the side quests where I talk to this guy for 5 minutes, do a random fetch quest, and
then come back and
not even come back. Sometimes it just solved itself once you did the thing.
That's
it's just
right.
like, all right, we only learn from The Witcher 3 to a certain degree, apparently.
Yeah. Until recently, when I saw the sales of the first Final Fantasy remake, I would say this game's going to be the best-selling game of next year, but it's not going to be.
And also, it's still going to be like, even those cutaways to Cloud, it's just like, God, he looks like he's going to fall over and die of TB any minute.
Well, it's just ridiculous. His hair, I mean, I don't know. We can go on and on about...
the hair is fine. I mean, they do make fun of the hair. Like, they're self-aware about that, but there's just elements of it where I'm like, just his face, it's like, he doesn't look well.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not well. Maybe that's part of the point, but like, everybody looks a little anemic.
I mean, I don't know. To me, the whole Square Enix RPG thing, it just all looks weird to me.
Red 13 looks more like lively than anybody else in the party.
Yeah, he runs around like crazy. Yeah.
It's just weird that everybody has that weird Uncanny Valley thing, and then you look at like Barrett's gun arm, and it's just like the most lovingly rendered thing in the fucking game. Like,
yeah,
like
it's strange. I mean, look at this shot right here. What is going on? Like,
well,
I think some people like the
Red
weirdness.
13's like smelling out the scent from the attack that they're supposed to solve, so they're talking about it. It's all detective work.
He's talking to a dog.
That's a cat.
Or whatever the hell it is. Is that a cat?
I think Red 13's more of a cat than a dog. Yeah.
It's a hyena, it looks like to me.
No, he's like a lion.
Okay.
He's like a shaved mane lion kind of character.
And actually,
no dog has a tail like that.
Actually,
that's a big cat tail.
Jerry Boulay brings up a good point.
There he is riding the chocobo.
Yeah. He says Square Enix needs to learn how to do side quests. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was a problem in Final Fantasy 16 as well. Like, the side quests in that weren't great either. Like, it just hasn't really sorted it out yet, unfortunately. But yeah, so this game is coming.
They're still sort of stuck in this weird thing where it's like, side quests don't have to be like MMOs, right?
Right. You can have a real quest be a side quest, like where you do real things that have meaning instead of just fetch quests, which is typically like 80% of Final Fantasy side quests are just fetch quests. So there you go. That's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Again, it comes out on February 29th. We have leap year coming up in 2024. So it comes out on leap year day on February 29th. So not long to wait. It is a PS5 exclusive for right now. And they have announced that it's going to be a PS5 exclusive for at least 3 months. Does that tell you that the PC version is going to launch 3 months later?
I mean, it could, but I don't think it will.
You don't think it will?
Nomura says he's a feline.
It's a feline? It's a cat? That's a
Despite
tough one.
despite pervading fan beliefs, a lot of people think he's a dog.
He looks like a dog. He's like a hyena to me. Or just a mutated hyena.
No dog has a tail like that.
I didn't even notice the tail.
The tail's on fire. You should notice the tail. In fact, you'd think the chocobo would have a problem with it.
Right, yeah. Well, you would think the chocobo would have a problem with the cat riding it. Because cats eat birds. Anyway.
I don't think that cat's going to eat a bird that big. Ostriches are not afraid of Luna.
That's true. So anyway, there you go. Again, that is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, PS5 exclusive, coming February 29th. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a game that I have spent a good bit of time with this week, and maybe some of you guys have as well because it's on Game Pass, and that game is Payday 3. The first thing I'm going to say about Payday 3 is that I believe critics have been a little harsh on the game in general. Now, one thing critics have been bringing up a lot about it is that there are connection issues getting into games. And I will say this, I have had connection issues, but it's the same every time. The first game I try to play, when I boot it up, it will not matchmake. It will eventually just crash and spit you back out to the main menu screen. The second time, it always works. But that has happened every time.
Yeah, there are people who have literally not been able to play it.
Really? I've been playing it on Xbox Series X. I don't know if that makes a difference on Xbox Live. I don't know if that makes a difference. Who knows?
Most of the I can't play it at all comments have been from PC players.
Okay. Starbreeze, meanwhile, has been blaming the connection issues on other people, saying it's like their partners that are dropping the ball, not them. It's not their netcode. It's their netcode working with whatever platform the game is trying to be played on. With PC, I don't know how you can use that excuse because there's no overlord handling online gameplay for the PC.
I don't know. I've seen the most complaints on PC.
Yeah, which is interesting.
The Steam reviews are in the toilet.
Yeah.
But then they're also in the toilet for Starfield. So.
They're in the toilet for everything on Steam, it feels like. Or a game will start out great and one little thing will happen and everyone will carpet bomb it.
Starfield got review bombed because it lets you pick your pronouns.
No.
That's it. That's why.
Okay. There you go.
And Sony people.
No. Oh, right. Makes sense.
You really shouldn't be able to review games on Steam if you haven't played them.
Yeah, if it's not in your catalog on Steam. I thought that was a thing, actually.
I thought so, too, but it doesn't feel like the people... I mean, maybe they just bought it, played it for an hour, and reviewed it and refunded it.
Or they intentionally bought it, played it for 2 hours, and then refunded it to, like, say, right. F you.
That's what I said.
Bethesda. Yeah. As, like, maybe hurting Bethesda in some way or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think they care.
Yeah.
Probably hurting Steam.
They definitely do not care.
Probably hurting Steam.
I can tell you 100%, Bethesda does not care about your childish, petty bullshit. They do not. I'll just tell you that right now. So anyway, Payday 3, here it's $40, by the way, if you buy the game, which is weird to me. Like, isn't Payday 2 free to play?
I don't remember.
I think it is. I'm sure. I think it may have started the same way, where when it launched, it cost money, and then over time they made it free to play.
Yeah, I feel like it must have, because otherwise I think I would have played it.
Right.
And I'd never bothered to play it.
Yeah. This is not free to play unless you consider something on Game Pass being free to play, which some people might.
And you can't even play it in some cases.
On Game Pass? Yeah, on PC, I guess.
You can't get through.
Yeah, you can't partner up with people.
Like I've rarely seen things that have united like the weirdo rage click right wing dumb fuck YouTubers and like the normal people, but like everyone's just sort of like, yep, we're all on the same page on this one. Like we can't play it. Probably it's not reliable. Like I have not seen unified hatred for a game like this in a long time.
Yeah, and again, like to reiterate, I think people are overreacting. Like I have not had big problems playing on an Xbox Series X, on Xbox Live. I have not really had major problems with it at all. It is a $40 game. It's available for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. It is PC and next gen only. I'm surprised this game was not released for last gen because it looks like a last gen game. We'll get to that.
I would never know this wasn't Payday 2 at the time. I mean, it's not like I know a lot about Payday 2.
Well, here's how the cutscenes work. They're animated stills. There are no cinematics in this game.
Was anyone expecting there to be?
I mean, there should be. It's 2023. They've been working on this game for 10 years now. It's been 10 years since Payday 2.
It's Payday. Like, who cares about this story? Like,
well, I guess they agree with you, Matt, because there really isn't much of one. Like, there are these cinematics.
These games have always felt like weirdly half-assed to me in general.
Yeah,
like
that's what I'm getting.
So it doesn't really shock me.
Yeah,
that this is what you get.
I'm shocked
there's cutscenes at all.
Really?
Frankly. I figured this game would just be like, okay, jump in a match, play a match, you're done.
I mean, again, Payday 2 has been on the market for a decade. They've had a decade to make its sequel.
Does Payday 2 have a story?
Probably not.
Like cutscenes and stuff?
Again, I haven't played it since a decade. I haven't played it since it came out. I remember very little about the original. So,
because to me, I would imagine this would function basically like Fortnite. Like, just like play a game. The fact that there's any kind of story to me is kind of ridiculous.
Well, you can see right here, actually.
There's like an actual campaign.
This is like where you choose the missions. And so how it works is, like, you see No Rest for the Wicked and Road Rage. Those are the actual missions. And then those things that are unlocked in between, those are cutscenes, quote unquote. Again, they're just...
I'm just trying to picture caring about story between Payday matches.
I after the first, like, 2 missions, I stopped watching the cutscenes because they're so horribly done. And really, there isn't a story. Like, there's a crime wave in New York City is, like, the overarching, like, premise of the game. But all these cinematics are really just, like, loosely connected narrative pieces that are there to make you think the people you're stealing from are bad people. So that you don't feel like you're a piece of...
So it can't even commit to that.
Right. It can't even commit to making the player feel bad for stealing.
Not even feel bad. Just if you're trying to do Heat, do Heat.
Right.
You're trying to do the opening of Dark Knight, do that.
Yeah. They don't commit to it. They hedge the bets. Like, every cinematic is basically telling you, this is why this company or this person is bad, and therefore it's okay for you to steal from them.
I promise you, in any situation in which you are wearing a clown mask and holding a gun, you are the bad guy.
Yep. I'd say that's probably pretty accurate. But anyway, as I said, those cinematics are optional. You don't have to watch them. I stopped watching them after a while because, to your point, Matt, who cares? Like, does the plot really matter? The plot is you're robbing this place and you need to go in and get the stuff and get out alive. And typically how the whole thing works is you start by choosing your loadout. They match you up with 4 people. Again, the first time I match up, it never works. It works every time after that. And you load up with 3 other players. They also have chosen their own loadouts and things like that. There's just one mode in the game, this mode, and a tutorial. And that's it. And not only that, in this mode, there are just 8 missions to play. I made it through all 8 missions in like 4 or 5 hours of playing, maybe a little longer. Because sometimes, like, people just quit. And then you're left with just bots on your team. And the bots in this are worthless. Don't even bother trying to play with bots in this game. Don't try to play it by yourself. You're just going to end up spending like 30 minutes on a mission, and you're going to fail it, and you have to do it all over again. And that is one thing about this game. Like, it's a pretty big commitment. Each mission can take anywhere from like 30 to like almost 50 minutes. And there are some times you get to the end of that mission and you fail and you get like nothing. You get like a little smidge of XP and you have to start it all over again. And the reason it's really frustrating is because each mission in this game is like a phase. So you start out, you're outside. You got to go around the building, got to figure out how to get in. That's what I'm doing right now. And as you saw, you can like cut the sill of a window to be able to get into the window. You figure out how to get in. Once you get in, you got to figure out, okay, where's the stuff that I'm trying to steal? And sometimes the game doesn't even present the stuff that you're trying to steal right away. There's a bunch of other crap that you have to do beforehand. And sometimes that other crap takes a really, really long time. It can take like 30 minutes before you even find the stuff that you're trying to steal in some of these missions. Like it takes that long for them to kind of get to the actual part of the game where you're actually playing and doing what most people think you do in Payday. But I'll say this. So there's 8 missions, but the locations very wildly. Like, I really thought it was just going to be one bank heist after another. Okay, here's a bank where the vault's in the basement. Here's a bank where the vault's in the back. Here's a bank where the vault's actually out front. Like, I thought that's how they're going to mix things up. That's not how it works. Like, they have I will say this. They've done a really good job finding creative ways to make this template, this gameplay template, work across a bunch of different locations and mission objectives. Now, truth be told, the areas are small. It's not like you're loading into this huge open world or anything like that, and then you're like trying to figure out where to go. There's waypoints everywhere. The game does a good job of guiding you in what you're supposed to do. What's happening right now in this B-roll is they're using thermite to burn a hole through the ceiling that will then drop us down into the vault. You use thermite a lot in this. Sometimes you use it on locks to get indoors. Sometimes you use it on vault doors. And a lot of times while that stuff's happening, the game turns into like a horde mode. So that thermite burning through the floor there, that will take like 10 minutes. And while you do that, waves of enemies flood in. There's some times where you have to use like these crazy drills to unlock the locks to vaults. Those will take 10 or 15 minutes. So basically you stand there and you defend that spot, that drill, while you're flooded with enemies, while the enemies try to come in and turn off the drill, etc., etc. So in a lot of ways, this game is more kind of like a horde mode than anything else, because that's really what it is. You are trying to steal the stuff out of each location while the game is sending waves of cops at you. And eventually, they send heavies that have crazy armor where you need grenades to even damage them. They don't really do bosses, so to speak, in this, but they do get pretty creative with some of the enemies, like the heavies that the cops send in after you. But there's a bunch of like cool little things in this. Like, simple bank heists really are just the beginning. Like, there's one mission where you're trying to steal from an art gallery, but you just don't go in and just grab all the paintings and then take them out. Like, you have to use this machine that's like a scanner that will scan each painting to tell you whether it's authentic or not, because in the gallery some of the paintings are actually fake. So, like, part of the mission is you got to find the scanner, and then you got to set it up, and then the horde mode kicks in. While it's scanning the painting, it takes a while. You have to defend the little scanning machine while it scans the paintings. There's another one where you escort a vehicle, like an armored vehicle, across a bridge, and as you go, it's a little bit like Overwatch, like the main mode in Overwatch, where it moves very slowly, and you have to walk alongside it and defend it. Along the way, you have to go and find like these planks that you can put over holes in the road so that the armored vehicle can go over like gaps in the bridge. And then you get to the end of the bridge, and you have to actually infiltrate the truck and blah, blah, blah. Again, they find really creative ways to find unique ways to make heist missions. There's another one where you go into a club and you have to get into the VIP area, and there's a crypto wallet in there you have to steal. There's another one where you infiltrate a dock, and there's a big cache of experimental electronics inside the dock, and you have to get in there. Like, again, I'm really impressed with how they've managed to mix up all the objectives to make it feel like it's not like this, which was what you're seeing right now, which is just invade a bank vault. This is the first mission, and you never really play another mission like this again. Another thing that you have to get good at, and I wouldn't say communication is that important, other than when you're first starting, people can help you by telling you what to do if they have a mic. But generally, the game does a good enough job with just the waypoints at telling you what it's asking you to do, which is good, because nobody uses mics, and maybe that's for the best ultimately. But you enter each mission with a primary, a secondary weapon, a deployable, which is like a sentry turret, or like these pickups that you can drop for shields, health, and ammo, which during the horde mode is very important that you drop one of those for your team right where the horde mode is taking place. That way that they can refill on their armor or their health or whatever in the middle of the fighting. But you deploy with one of those, and you also deploy with a throwable, so like a grenade of some type. You also can choose an armor lining. So as you play through the game, you unlock more heavier armor, but also it makes you move slower, but it also defends you better, and you can unlock those as you go. You also get an overkill weapon, which is basically like your super. And all I ever unlocked was a grenade launcher and a crazy super like sniper rifle for those. And then you also launch with a tool, like a mine or a camera that you can put somewhere to monitor. And then there's skill points that you earn as you play through the game. There's 17 different categories that you can put your skill points in. Again, this is a game as a service that they want to run for the next decade, so they need to make sure that the skill tree is nice and beefy so that you can keep upgrading. There's 17 different categories. Each category has 5 or 6 different upgrades each. So again, the upgrade tree is pretty big. And generally, those upgrades give you buffs for these 3 statuses that you can have in the game called Edge, Grit, or Rush. And like most good games, you can respec whenever you want if the way that you spec stuff isn't working out for you. What else? You make cash for each heist. So eventually you find the stuff that you need to get out. Like right there, that guy's holding a bag. And generally they are bags, but you have to be smart with how you do it, because you'll find the stuff like hidden deeply inside the building, and you need to get it out of the building in shifts. So you get it all out of the vault, you throw it out into the hallway, then you get in a fight, you win the fight, you finish the horde mode, you pick up the stuff again, you move it further out towards the exit. Maybe you get it right next to the exit. Then another horde mode kicks in. Then you move the stuff outside. And outside, as you can see right here, that's when, like, generally, like, the most crazy police assaults happen. And then it's just this mad rush to fight off all the cops, get all the bags into either the getaway vehicle or the getaway helicopter, get everyone collected around that vehicle for X amount of time, and then the mission just ends. And then the weirdest part is, like, there's no cutscene showing you escaping in the helicopter with the loot. There's no cutscene showing you in the truck riding off with the loot, like high-fiving each other. It just, like, fades to white and just ends. It's so weird. Like,
that's more like what I would expect.
So anyway, so once you get out with the money, you go to the game over screen. It shows you all the money that you've collected, how many bags of money you've got, or how many pieces of jewelry that you got, or whatever. And they give you a reward of cash. And then you use that cash to go and buy all the stuff I went through earlier. The primary and secondary weapons, the deployables, the throwables, the armor linings, the overkill weapons, blah, blah, blah. You go into a menu where you can buy that stuff. But that stuff unlocks so slowly. So by the time I finished the game and finished all 8 missions, I had a grand total of 3 weapons to buy, Matt. So it is very slow. This game has been designed to try to sustain people for 10 years. But there's only enough missions to last for like 5 hours. Like, again, I don't know. Look, Starbreeze has been in financial trouble for a while, Matt. And in fact, they have said publicly that this is what's going to save them. That they needed Payday 3 to save them financially. They've had 10 years to make this game. And I managed to work through all the content in like half a day. Like,
I mean, the point is the grind, right?
To other people it is, to me it is not. Like, I did not find this compelling enough to keep playing the same missions over and over and over again. You rely a lot on teammates in this. You die constantly. So you always have to have people reviving you. If people don't get to you before the timer runs out, you have to sit out of the match for a minute and wait to respawn. And then you're biting your nails because, again, like, you get to the end of one of these missions, you're like 40 minutes in. If everybody dies at this point right here, you got to start it all over again. And that is disheartening. And I will tell you, like, when I took a break from this game, that's when I took the break. When I would try a mission, me and 3 people spent 30 or 40 minutes trying to get through it, and we all died, like, right at the end. It hurts. I'll just put it to you that way. Yeah, so as I said, the unlocks are basically controlled by your player level. The skill points you get are also controlled by your player level. And they just, after, like, the first, like, couple hours, it just grinds to a crawl. Like, you're working, you have to play like 3 missions to go up like 1 level or whatever. And it becomes a grind, like you said. As you've seen in this B-roll, the graphics, like, this could easily run on a PS4 or an Xbox One. There's no reason this is next gen only. Again, after 10 years, this is how your game looks. Like, I don't know. I'm just wondering what they were doing all this time. Like, because ultimately my big complaint isn't what other people are complaining about. It isn't that, like, I can't get matchmaking to work or whatever, or there's weird network issues. It's just that there's just not enough content. It's like the lower third says, overdrawn. Like, it's writing checks that the game can't cash. Like, they want you to play this for a long period of time, but it literally held my interest for like a day. And granted, I had a really good time with it. Like, I was pleasantly surprised by this game in many ways. And then it ended, and I was like, there's no way that's it. And it was. So, Payday 3, paying $40 for it, I would say no way right now. Now, maybe in 6 months when there's 20 missions to play through, I might consider it worth the $40.
Yeah, that sounds very optimistic.
But you know that's not going to happen. Exactly. Yeah. Like, if it took them 10 years to get 8 missions together, how long is it going to... They're going to put out one mission every, like, 3 months would be my guess.
Yeah, I don't pretend to know a whole lot about developing a game like this, but it does seem weird that it's not like they really reinvented the formula here.
It seems to be the same exact game. And the visuals aren't all that much better than the last game. And there's way less missions. So I guess what I would say in the end is, like, if watching this has you interested in the Payday franchise, go play Payday 2 if you haven't already. Because there's way more content there. This game doesn't look markedly better than Payday 2. I don't know what happened with this.
I don't understand
game.
What's happening here.
Like
it says steal the money. Is one of your guys running back and forth bringing money out from the building, and you guys are just trying to hold off the cops so they have a clear
Yep, that's exactly what's happening. And what happens sometimes in this game, too, is like you get to the end, you've loaded all the bags into the vehicle or the helicopter or whatever, and there's one dude who is just out running around, killing people, and the other 3 guys, you're standing there at the getaway vehicle, and there's like the 3 out of 4 on the screen, and you're just waiting for him to show up, and meanwhile, you're getting bombarded by like heavies and enemies, and you're just like, bro, where are you? And when everybody dies in those situations, it'll make you real mad, Matt. Let me just tell you, buddy. If you finished the level, and some jackhole is out running around being a jerk, and everybody dies before he gets back there to exit, breathing fire, man. So you are highly dependent on other people in this game. Like, if you aren't playing with a bunch of good people, like, you'll never finish a mission. I'll say this, though. My experience generally was pretty damn good. Like, most of the people that I played with were cool. They were constantly reviving me. I'm reviving them. Even some people, like my first couple matches, even though they didn't have a mic, were using, like, their gun to point to stuff to tell me what to do. Like, I also forgot to mention that, like, there's these moments where you have to get the loot. So you get into the vault, or you get into the art gallery where you need to steal the paintings or whatever, and you need to actually get it. So if you're in a vault, you're doing a bunch of, like, safe cracking stuff. If you're trying to get paintings or art, a lot of times they're behind glass, and you have, like, this laser. The same one that I used earlier to cut the sash on the window. You can use that laser to cut through glass and then, like, grab jewelry out of cases, or to cut through glass and get paintings out from behind cases and things like that. And that's a whole other thing. Like, one person does that while the other 3 players defend. So there is a lot of teamwork involved in this to actually complete missions. But I'll just say, I had a lot of fun playing this game while it lasted. If I had spent $40 on it, I'd be pissed, though. It's free on Game Pass, or it's, if you have Game Pass, it's there. I noticed people are very touchy about us saying free on Game Pass, Matt. People get salty over that. I don't know why, even though basically stuff is free. Like, if you do the math, each game costs like 4 cents a month on Game Pass. But anyway, it is on Game Pass, and that's how I would recommend everybody plays this. Like, if this piques your interest, just get Game Pass for a month. Instead of spending $40, spend $15 and play it for a day and a half or 2 days. You'll have been all the way through all the missions, and off you go. You enjoy the rest of your life to go to play some Cyberpunk 2077.
And if you're actually going to rob a bank, the plan should probably involve only one trip to the getaway vehicle.
The whole thing's absurd. I mean, the whole idea of the game is absurd. Like, if you're gonna rob a bank, you don't stay at the bank for 40 minutes. Like, you get the stuff and you go, and then you get in like a car chase, and then maybe you wreck the car, and then you get in a gunfight. Like, that's how a real heist would work. Like, you're not gonna survive if you stay at the bank for 40 minutes. They're just gonna blow in so many cops that they're just gonna annihilate you. So, yeah, you definitely have to suspend disbelief to play this game. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of absurdities about it. The other thing, too, is that you and your compatriots are bullet sponges. You can take so much damage before you die. Like, It's not realistic, but it is fun. And I did have fun playing this game for a day and a half. To me, that's not worth $40. So my recommendation to you is if after listening to this or watching this and seeing the footage and you're interested, again, just
Where did that guy come from?
I don't know. Just get Game Pass. And see, here's the other thing it does too. Look at the little space we all have to hide in. Like, we all need to be within those white lines to count that we're, like, ready to leave. See, we're 2 out of 3 right now. Team Escape, 2 out of 3. We're waiting for the third guy to get into the damn white zone so we can finish the freaking mission. Like, again, you really have to rely on other people playing with you. And for the most part, 90% of the time, it totally was fine. It worked out great. So there you go. He finally showed up, and here's the end mission screen where you get to see that this is early in the game, so I think this mission leveled me up like 2 levels or whatever. But once you get to like level 7 or 8, like, it takes multiple missions to go up 1 level. It starts to turn into a slow grind. So that's Payday 3. Again, I had a lot of fun with it. I would not recommend it for $40. I would probably, as it sits right now, $25 would be the right price to pay for it. But again, I recommend just getting Game Pass for a month or just waiting 6 months. Eventually, this game's going to be free to play. It just is. Like, and by then, once they decide, people aren't paying for it anymore, there'll probably be 30 missions to play through. But again, I would recommend going back and playing Payday 2 before you shell out $40 to play this. The upgrading graphics isn't worth the money that they're asking you to spend for it. So, do you have any questions about Payday, Matt?
Nope.
Let's check chat and make sure. Commander Fett, sounds like they need a voting system to end the match. Yeah, I don't know how that would work, though.
If the majority of people are in the escape, you just all vote to end the thing, and it doesn't matter if dipshit's out there.
Dipshit's running around doing whatever. Yeah, I guess that would be a way to improve it, for sure. AJ the Legend Watson asks, is there environmental damage? Yes, there is. I mean, you saw as part of the gameplay, for example, you use the thermite to burn a hole through the roof, and then you fall down in the hole, and then you're in the vault. There's a lot of stuff like that. Now, like, if you just stand and shoot a wall, will it explode and tear apart? No. There's bullet holes, but you can't completely destroy parts of the environment, if that's what you're asking. 4-leaf clover, this is not, says Big Dave Lazard. Erebus Jones says it's Left 4 Dead Bank Robber Edition. Yeah, I guess. Because it really is just a horde mode when it comes down to it. It's a horde mode that you're trying to accomplish objectives between the horde rushes, essentially. And in that way, it probably is one of the better horde mode games. Again, it kept my attention until the missions ended, and I probably would have kept playing. But once I finished those missions, and they're like, do them again, I'm like, nah, I'm good. And that's where I left it off. So Vincent says there should also be a partial success option, like leaving with 60% of the money if you're getting overwhelmed. You can leave with any amount of the money. It's up to you, like how brave you want to be and how many times you want to keep going back and bringing the bags out. Like, there's a total, in most missions, there's a total of like 15 or 16 bags, something like that. That's just my rough estimate. And there's some missions I finish with 6 bags. There's some missions I finish with all the bags. And that matters. Like, you get more money the more bags that you get. Sometimes a lot more money. But the other thing I should have mentioned that I didn't mention is that the money, like, I finished playing a day and a half. I had like $4 million and nothing to spend it on. Because again, I finished the game. I had 3 weapons to buy, 2 of which I already had. And the other one was like a battle rifle or whatever. I'm like, I don't even need that. So yeah, like you earn money, and you can leave with 1 bag of money. You can leave with all the bags of money. It's up to you and your team how much risk you want to take. Because again, when you're at the end of and you've already spent 40 minutes on that mission, it's high stakes. Like, you grab the controller a little more tightly because you're like, damn, I dedicated 40 minutes to this. We're not screwing this up. And if one of your teammates screws it up, you get pissed. I got pissed. They're lucky that I didn't have a mic, because I would have let them have it. So yeah, like there's risk reward with the money, and like how much of a risk you want to take trying to get all the money and be greedy versus like, okay, we got most of it. Well, let's just all get into the white zone and end the mission and collect our cash. So there is kind of that seesaw to it. Like, well, I want more money. Do I want to make sure I finish the mission and I didn't waste all my time? So there's a little bit of element of that to it as well. Once again, you guys ask great questions. So Nightwing 3060 sounds like Saints Row. I don't know about that. Yeah.
Unless he means having so much money you don't have anything to buy.
Oh yeah, if you're talking about that, then yeah, that would be a pretty good analogy. So, but there you go. That's Payday 3. It's available for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. But most importantly, it is on Game Pass. So if you want to play it, that's how I recommend you play it. Next up, we're going to talk about a game that I also played. Actually, yeah, I played it this week. And Matt, I believe you said that you had played the original, and I had not. I had never played the original Ghostrunner. So I got to play Ghostrunner 2. There's a demo available right now. I think it's on every platform, if I remember correctly. And I had never played the original. So I would just went in completely blind. And I was quite surprised at what I found with Ghostrunner. What were your impressions of the original?
Interesting, but too hard.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
He's a one-hit kill.
Yep.
And that kind of thing. And like there's an element of like, oh, I could, if I was like 14 and I had all the time in the world and got like into this, like I could definitely see myself mastering it, but not today.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I haven't played this one is like, yeah, I'm good. I get it. I played the first one. I understand.
Well, Matt, you'll be upset to know that the sequel is exactly the same.
Yeah, it looked like it.
It is a first-person parkour action game where you get hit once you die. And it's basically you memorize each little section of the game. I mean, the rub here is that the enemies also typically die in one shot. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of them in some cases. And so it's one of those games where you play the same like 40-second section of it over and over again until you memorize enemy placement, you memorize the abilities that the enemies have, what guns do they have, how aggressive are they, how apt are they to attack me if they can see me, for all that stuff. You learn every time you go through it. And the checkpoints in this game literally happen like every 45 seconds or a minute because you will probably die in that 45 seconds or a minute. Like, you very rarely did I go through a section of this after the first like 5 minutes or so where I just completed it the first time and just kept going and like kept stacking the checkpoints. Like, that hardly ever happened for me. Like, after the first 3 checkpoints, I ended up having to try them all over and over and over again. And I think that's kind of the charm of the game. If you could call it charm, Matt.
I mean, I guess that's what people are after in that. This does look way better.
Graphically,
for sure.
Yeah.
Like, the first one does take place in like a cyberpunk world, but you just kind of got to take its word for it. Mm-hmm. And this is actually out in the world a little more.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely has a cyberpunk look. Whether it's actually a cyberpunk game or not, probably not. But it looks like
I mean, you're kind of the one man against the system. It's more cyberpunk than cyberpunk is.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So it is a first-person parkour combat game. The original was released back in 2020, so not that long ago. I don't know why I just totally missed that game, but somehow I did.
I don't remember. I think I played it. I think it was Game Pass. I have a hard time believing I bought it.
Yeah. This sequel is set in the same town. It's called Dharma Tower, so the setting is exactly the same. And in the last game, you killed someone called the Keymaster. Mm-hmm.
Now you got to kill the gatekeeper.
What'd you say?
Now you got to kill the gatekeeper?
No. Now it's like the main character's name is Jack, but Jack and his team, there's like now that
there is no Jack, only Zool.
Yeah. Well, now that the Keymaster is gone, all these gangs have moved in to Dharma Tower to try to take over the power vacuum, basically. And so it's your job to put down all these gangs that have tried to move in. Now the story itself is mostly told through radio chatter. Like, you always have someone in your ear talking to you saying, "Oh, you should do this. Oh, you should do that." And it is helpful. Some of the tips that they gave me like helped me get through some of the levels in this game. But otherwise the plot is pretty insignificant, honestly. Like, what are you laughing at?
I think it like tells you like use dash to bust through this wall, and you bust through the wall, and it's just like an empty space.
Oh, that's so evil, dude. Like, you just fall down into the hole. Yeah, I was like, what the hell? What kind of level design is that? Like, there's a little bit of like that in this game where you're like, really? Like, you're gonna be that dastardly with how you...
I love on the hand, he did that in the first one where the hands go up and you get killed, and it's just like, oh no!
Yeah.
It's silly. But
so as we said, it's one hit.
It's fun to watch like people are really good at this game play it though, because they're like, it's like watching them dance.
It is crazy, but it's a lot of memorization, honestly.
Yeah, you just have to know every inch.
Yep. No, you got to know exactly when to dash, exactly when to jump, exactly when to slash with your sword, exactly when to throw your ninja stars. Like, it's all pattern memorization and level memorization and enemy placement memorization. You got to be on point. Because you can't make any mistakes, because if you get hit once, you die. But again, the checkpoints are very generous. They never make you go back very far, because if they would, people would never play this game. But you can jump, you can run, you can slash, you can deflect bullets with your sword, you can wall run, you can air dodge, you can slide. There's a parry system, which I don't think was in the original. Where if you perfect parry, you can defeat enemies like in one shot, but you can defeat most enemies in one shot anyway. There is an energy meter that you have to keep an eye on that regulates all your dashing. It also doubles as your block gauge, so that, you know, when you block, it's draining that meter as well. If you get the timing right for blocking and countering, it results in one-hit executions. But again, almost all the enemies in this, you just slash them once and they die, so it almost feels like it's a moot point. There's also bullet time, which is called the sensory boost that allows you to slow down time, which is really important in this. You can actually be in midair and initiate that, and they can fire a gun at you, and you can dodge the bullets in midair, which is pretty freaking cool. I can't think of too many games that let you do that. Even games that use bullet time rarely let you do something cool like that. So I thought that was pretty fun and pretty impressive. So, yeah, basically you dash and you're dodging a lot. It helps you avoid the incoming gunfire, or it also helps you close the gap between you and enemies. Because, again, they have guns, and you don't have a gun. You have ninja stars, which are also one-hit kills, but it takes a while to, like, you can't, it's not like firing a gun. You fire one ninja star, there's probably like 4 seconds before you can fire another one. So you can't just spam the ninja stars like the enemies can with guns. So you're at a huge disadvantage in this game just in general in every skirmish. As you've seen in the B-roll, there's also a grapple hook that you can use. So you use that in addition with your dashes. You can get across like chasms that at first you look at and you're like, there's no way I can get across that. But then you actually try it and you're like, oh, I actually can get across that. I didn't think that I could, which is pretty cool. And I think in general, the grapple hook in this, like, it just provides unexpected moments in general because it will just latch on to the nearest grapple point. So sometimes you just jump and you hit the grapple button, and it will just latch onto something you didn't even see, and will just send you flying off into the sky in some random direction. Like, I found that happening a lot, and sometimes it's actually helped me, like, get the drop on enemies, or show me a part of the level design where I needed to go next. Because there were some times in this where I just got confused on where the game wanted me to go, or how I was supposed to get to certain areas that it wanted me to go. What else is there to say about this? I guess I would just say in general that to what you mentioned earlier, Matt, like, once you get good at this, like, you kind of like surprise yourself with some of the stuff that you do. Some of it's on accident, like you hit the grapple button at the right time and it like grapples you away from an enemy or whatever, and then you fly back at him with the dash and like take him out or whatever. But like, here's a cool spot. Or eventually, like, there's this spot where I'm sliding down one of those and there's a barrel at the end, and I use my ninja star to hit the barrel, and as I come into the area, I realize there's a bunch of enemies standing around the barrel, and it blows them all up. Like, there's just moments in this game where where stuff happens or you do stuff that is not expected. And it's cool. Like, I wish there were more games like this where things just happen on the fly and catch you off guard. You do get 2 special abilities. One of them is called Tempest. It's kind of works on a bunch of different levels. It lets you move objects with your mind. And what I've seen based on the demo that I played, most of that is for like puzzle solving, like moving objects over onto switches or moving an object over somewhere else where you could use it better, where you couldn't use it where it was before. You can also use it on enemies, though. You can use it to blow groups of enemies backwards so you can gain yourself some breathing room. Because, again, it's you against everybody else in this game. And sometimes it can feel really overwhelming. You're just like, how is it possible that I'm supposed to beat 8 dudes in this room? But slowly, try after try, you start to figure out like what they want you to do, where you need to go, the right timing to move to particular areas in the space.
Your arch enemy, pipe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And sometimes you just get stuck on the very simple things. Like, again, where does the game want me to go? Am I supposed to be jumping this way? Am I supposed to be jumping that way? And then the final special ability, the other special ability that I got in this demo are the ninja stars that I've been talking about. They're electrified. And as I said, you can use them to strategically explode barrels. And conveniently, there always seems to be enemies standing around barrels in this game, which is a little weird. So you can use it to explode barrels, or you can just use it on enemies to attack enemies with. And again, generally, they're a one-hit kill. If you hit the enemy in the chest or head area, it generally takes them out with just one ninja star. And then switching between the 2 abilities is a little clunky and a little weird. Like, you use the D-pad to do that, but it feels like there's a delay. So if you try to use the push ability and then quickly follow it up with a ninja star, it's not as smooth as I would like, which limits your combo abilities. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that's something that gets tweaked a little bit before the game comes out. And then there's another style a gameplay style in this that I did not get to play because it's not in the demo, and that is riding a motorcycle. Like, it's almost like the light cycles in Tron. The bikes are really fast, so they can go up vertical walls and things like that. And I did do a little bit of research on it, and some people have had a chance to kind of fiddle around with it, and they have not been impressed with it. So I don't know how that's going to turn out ultimately, the motorcycle stuff. But the parkour, the first-person parkour stuff I played, I generally enjoyed. It does get a little frustrating at times trying the same dinky little section over and over again. Like, there was one part that I got to where it was just like this big open area with like tracks that you could jump on and ride on that went in a loop around the area. I had to play that section, I don't know, it probably took me 20 tries before I figured it out, because there was always enemies running into the fight behind you. You'd engage with one enemy, and you'd finish that enemy, and before you could even turn around, someone would hit you in the back and kill you. So there's a lot of that in this. It's a lot of trial and error, figuring out how the game wants you to do certain sections of the game versus just trying to do them on the fly. There is generally a very rigid path through the level that the game wants you to take, and if you try to freestyle it too much, it doesn't always work out so great. But overall, I had fun with it. I don't know if I would want to play this for like 15 or 20 hours, though. How long was the original? Do you remember, Matt?
I want to say it was like 7 or 8.
7 or 8 hours?
I don't know.
That would be about my max for a game like this, honestly. I don't know if I could take it much more than that. Or play it in small
I think
chunks.
you can run through it in like
10 minutes.
10 minutes or something. Yeah, it's...
But if you actually have to retry and keep trying to figure it out, then yes, it takes more time. So here you're actually going to see the Tempest skill being used to move objects instead of just using the pushback enemies. And this is like a simple puzzle where I need to push this like air platform over so that I can actually make use of it to help it boost me up to the area where... The other thing the ninja stars are used for too is to flip switches, and that's a big mechanic in this, is like get yourself to a position where you have a clear shot at a button that you need to press with the ninja stars. And that's another big element in it, is like, okay, I need to use this spring pad to get up there so that I can jump high enough that I have that little window to throw that ninja star through that little portal hole to hit that switch on the other side of it. There's a lot of that type of stuff in this game. But generally, I had a pretty good time with it. I do think it's a game for a specific type of player. I think a patient player probably will appreciate games like this more, people who enjoy a challenge. I think it's a pretty good-looking game, though. It's also PC and next-gen only, so another game that is not coming to last-gen consoles, and I think that helps in its favor. The game also comes out, I think it's October... I have it here somewhere in my notes. I believe I do. Oh, yeah, it comes out October 26th. So here's yet another game coming out in October that's just going to get totally lost in the shuffle, and no one's going to buy it. And, you know, I don't know that this game needs to come out around Halloween, honestly. Like, they could have released it somewhere else, and it would have made just as much sense, But yeah, it comes out on October 26th, just before Halloween. The game's not a horror game at all, if you're wondering. It's just a cyberpunk sci-fi game, pretty much.
Probably some body horror in there, if you think about it.
Maybe. I mean, I haven't seen much of it, but yeah. That is Ghostrunner 2. Also, this game was the first shown off. It was almost like... I almost got the vibe that it was like a PlayStation exclusive, because it was in that state of play with Helldivers 2. So a lot of people thought that those third-party games were actually like console-timed exclusives or whatever. That is not the case for either one of those games. This game is coming day and date with PC and Xbox.
Yeah, I didn't see anybody think that about this one. Just Helldivers because Sony's publishing it.
Yeah. Well, that's just, I think, PC and PlayStation. Yeah. I think that is a console exclusive for Sony. But this is coming to Xbox as well. So any questions about Ghostrunner 2, Matt?
No, it looks very similar to what I played before.
Did you pick up on anything there that looked drastically different from the first one?
It just looks better.
Yeah, just graphically.
I don't remember it tremendously well. The parry's new, I think. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you had, like, the force push.
No. Did you have the ninja stars still in the last one?
I want to say yeah, but I don't think they were electrified. I can't remember.
Okay. Yeah, I'm surprised there weren't, at least in this demo that I played, there wasn't, like, things where, like, here's an enemy and he's standing in a puddle of water, like, throw the ninja star in the water and electrocute him. Like, I didn't see a lot of stuff like that, like elemental stuff. Maybe later on in the game that stuff shows up, though.
Probably not. I mean, that's too fast.
Yeah. But anyway, that's Ghostrunner 2. Again, it's coming to PC, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series on October 26th. Next up, the game that got pushed from last week's show, that is, I think, one of the most creative and unique games that I have seen in, like, years. And it's called The Making of Karateka. Am I pronouncing
Karateka.
that? Karateka. I had a feeling I was pronouncing it incorrectly. And I'll just be honest with you, Matt, I do not remember Karateka.
I played Karateka hundreds of hours.
Did you?
The Apple IIe game, I played it hundreds and hundreds of times.
So explain to the people what this actually is.
So, what Karateka is, or what this
game is.
So this is basically a documentary about the making of Karateka, presented as an interactive entertainment object. So Karateka is
a playable documentary.
Yeah, Karateka is made by Jordan Mechner, who probably is more famous for creating Prince of Persia. But Karateka is the game he made before Prince of Persia. And if you know Prince of Persia, it's very obvious that is the case, because it is a side-scrolling, almost fighting game. Doesn't look that good. There it is. It is a side from the side fighting game where you are a karate guy, and this bad guy named Akuma has captured this princess. And you're running into his fortress to rescue her, and he sends all his karate warrior guys after you, and you have to fight them and fight your way up and get past his goddamn bird, and then fight him and rescue her. And it's not a super complex game by today's standards, but at the time there was nothing like this.
Oh yeah, I mean back to Apple IIe,
it was. I mean, there was Karate Champ, which was like a 1v1 like fighting. Maybe
that looks very similar.
I mean, it's similar in the sense that it's like.
The art.
Guys in karate gis, but as you can see here, the art has no relation. He rotoscoped his brother.
Yeah, I believe it. But they do look very similar, though.
This has much better animation than Karate Champ ever did.
Well, I think the Karate Chops and Karate Champ had like 2 frames of animation.
Yeah, and the karate. I mean, this is like, as you'll see, like this. The Karate Champ was like hit once and you get a point, like a karate tournament. This is, you have a life bar at the bottom.
It's a real action adventure game.
Yeah, and you lose every time you win a fight, you lose a life point because you're getting tired. So if you take, and so basically you'll see you run towards the next guy, and then when you get to the next guy, you have to stop and drop into your karate pose, because if you get hit while you're in your standing pose, you die in one hit. And you have kicks or punches. The Apple IIe version is they have a bunch of different versions on this. So one of the things about this is, and one of the reasons this has been made the way it was, I think, is that Jordan Mechner is just a very organized person. But you have all
the way this has been made, or the way
this documentary thing has been made. You have all these different prototypes of the game he was making before this, and the game he was making. Karateka, but also Death Bounce was the game that never came out. Karateka, and then he made Karateka instead for Brotobund. And then you also have some stuff from like the game he was making himself before that, which is an Asteroids clone. Yeah, and you can play all of these. Yeah, like prototypes of Karateka, prototypes of Death Bounce, the unfinished game Asteroids thing. Different versions of Karateka, Apple IIe, Atari 8-bit, Commodore 64. I will say this, the Apple IIe version of this game is A, the original, and B, the best one, because the buttons for punch and kick are separate. Because
such a simple change.
Because the Apple IIe had 2 buttons, and the other game system, like the Commodore 64 and Atari, didn't. So you have to hold the attack button to kick. Yeah. And the kicks are way, 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 way more useful than the punches. So you are it just adds there's a little bit of playing underwater for the other versions. Apple IIe is the one I played forever. And I jumped in, loaded it up. And I'll tell you that it's hard to play some of these games on emulators, because the way you switch to running pose is you hold up on the joystick, and then you tilt the joystick sort of up and forward, and he runs. Yeah. And then to get him back in a pose, you let it go, and he just drops out as soon as he slows down. On an emulator, it's very hard to tell an emulator that middle motion of holding up and then holding forward. He will drop out of it. And the thing is, you can't get through the game doing that, because it's time-based as to whether the next enemies will come out or not, and you'll just keep fighting these enemies over and over and over again. You'll never get to the end, and so you need to be able to get up and run fast. And this is the first time I've played this game since the original Apple IIe where that actually works properly. Yeah. So this is the best way to play. And then this is a remade version of the game, with not modern graphics, but obviously like you've got a little extra oomph. It moves a little smoother. There's better combos. The sound effects, so it's got some added things. There's like a couple more surprises because the game's only three stages.
Yeah.
And the only real twist in the original is that bird on his shoulder. In the second mission, in the second floor, the bird starts flying at you as you're running, and it'll kill you in one hit if you're still running. So you'll hear it go, and you have to stop.
Karate pose.
And then you have to punch
Hammer
or
time.
kick. Usually punch because it's faster, but it'll come at you either high, medium, or low, and you have to hit it. Because that's how the game works: is you can kick or punch high, medium, or low, and that's determined by the angle you hold the joystick while you're attacking. You can get usually 3 hits in. This is early on. You can do this sort of like jab combo thing, which very quickly stops working as you move forward. And they've all got different helmets on. They're very, 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 very organized.
What I'm more curious about instead of this old game is the playable documentary. Because that, to me, is something that Digital Eclipse is one that did this. Is that correct?
Yes.
That, to me, that template can be used in perpetuity.
That's kind of what I mean is it can't.
Oh.
Because, again, the only reason you can make this is because Jordan Mechner is so organized and still has all of these things.
All the old builds.
And the interview, and there's a bunch of interviews and stuff, and then it turns out the real hero of it is his father, because his father remembers all this stuff. And in the interviews with his father's like, oh, you did this, and then you did this, and then you did... Because
his dad remembers more than he does.
Because Mechner was like 17, 18, and he was going to Yale, I think, and like all he was working on games in the middle of that and failing classes because of it. He has a lot of information about also because he started to keep a journal in college, so you get a lot of journal entries from him about like these things, and some of it's just like, don't know where I am, haven't slept in 4 days, got to finish the prototype kind of thing. But his dad remembers all this stuff. Like sometimes there's one thing where he doesn't quite remember the name of something he was working on. His dad does. Like his dad clearly paid a lot of attention.
How does it work though? So so you boot it up. And you just select from a menu like, I just want to play this, or this, and then I just want to watch the documentary? Or is it like you're watching the documentary and they get to the point where they talk about like the first build of the game, and then the build pops up and you can play it?
Well, you're not watching it so much as like it's divided into chapters. You can just pick the games on their own in a separate section, but then if you pick the documentary, there are different chapters chronologically, and it's organized kind of like a tree, like a sideways tree. And some of them are just... Here's a little text about what's happening now. Some of it is like an old photo, and you get complete that by opening the photo and looking at the zoomed in version. Then sometimes there's a play button, and that'll show you like a little video clip. Usually interviews, or sometimes it's interviews with him and his father, or like other industry people who were around at the time talking about how important the game was. Modern people talking about how it was the first game they tried and it's got them into things, kind of thing. And then after, usually if they're talking about a specific version, especially early on, or they're talking about him working on his Astro thing or Death Bounce and the constant back and forth he was having with Broderbund about whether they were willing to publish it or not, which in the end they were not. Then usually below that on the tree, you'll find like a little floppy disk thing that it'll have a little information about what that version of the game was, and then you can play it.
Gotcha. Okay, that's pretty cool.
And so you kind of have a chronological organization of all the things... all the versions of the games that at least still exist. I think there's 2 or 3 versions of Karateka that are all, prototype things. They did actually, in the same way of this remake, they did actually make a modern version of Death Bounce, a game that has never been released before. So like an imaginary sort of like, what would a remaster of this game that never got finished be? And that's fun.
Yeah.
That one's interesting just because it... what Death Bounce started as and what it ended up becoming are 2 extremely different things.
And you can see it.
Yeah, because it starts as basically like bouncing soap bubbles around a rectangle, and it ends up being like an alien heist on a train. Like
wow.
it's remarkably different.
I hear your point, though. You're right. Like, most developers, publishers don't keep this stuff around. But, man, if there were others that do, again, if you can get the assets
if you have the assets, there's no reason not to do it. I mean, like, other than time and money. But, like,
right.
And this is a very significant... This is more of a developer's game, I think, in the sense that, like, this game inspired a lot of people to make stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know how timeless it is in terms of, like, people who remember playing it, but I certainly do. And actually, one of my favorite Packed Your Party moments was I'd gotten there, and I went to see Morgan, because Morgan was there talking to some guy, and I went over and started talking to her, and she just to me, it was Jordan Mechner.
No way.
And I was like, oh, I kind of, I don't, you know me,
I've met him before.
I don't freak out about things too much.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh man, I played Karateka like 400 times, and I geeked out about Karateka. He's like, wow, usually it's Prince of Persia. I'm like, no, Karateka, man. Like, and he appreciated that, and we talked about stuff for a while. And when I got home, he had friended me on Facebook.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I get to like see, and he lives in France, and now, and like he goes to cafes and sketches out people he sees in the cafe. So I get to see all that stuff.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
It's always nice when you meet someone who did something that you loved as a kid, and they turn out to be nice.
Yeah.
And,
well, he's also still trailblazing, by the way.
Yeah.
Like this, again, like the coolest thing about this to me is how this is all presented as a package. Like, and you could do more with this. You could do what I said. You could create this documentary that like sends you into the build. It's like, and then we worked on this build and blah, blah, blah. And
this is also a really good way to present games that are a little too primitive to stand on their own. Like,
agreed. Yeah.
I mean, I love Karateka, but it's not like I would throw it at somebody now.
Yeah, yeah.
But you present it like this, and it feels like somebody made like an interactive version of Icons.
Yeah.
Like it's you feel like you're playing history.
Yeah.
More than an old game.
I think it's brilliant, man. Like when I found out what this was,
I would kill a man to have them do this to a game called Wings of Fury, which is another Apple II game with a plane. I don't know if any of that stuff. I think it was also broken.
Or Wizardry. I mean,
that would work for Wizardry. It would be a good way to get old Wizardry games back in the map.
Yeah.
Ultima. This would be a good for the early Ultimas. This would be great.
They're remaking Wizardry.
I guarantee you, Lord British has all this stuff saved to do that with it.
Yeah.
It's just a neat thing. Like, you know, you should even, you know, it's interesting. Like, you'd have to, the research that would be required for this, like, especially for doing something like for like an old like Japanese game, like do something like this for Pac-Man.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
But like, you'd have to like find people who have some of these things stashed away in closets somewhere, and builds of this and builds of that, and like, you know.
A lot of it just depends on the people who are making the games. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, if you have the archive to do it, then there's.
I would love to see more of this.
This is a way to.
How much did this cost, by the way?
Oh, I think this was $15.
$15? That seems right to me.
Yeah.
And it's on everything. It's on pretty much every platform. I don't know how this is like flown under the radar so much. Like, nobody's covered this.
Because it's Digital Eclipse, which is not a huge reach, and because there's very few people who care about Karateka.
But again, to me, it's not about Karateka.
Yeah, but people are going to. That's what you're judging it by. Like, people are like, I don't even know what that game is.
No, you're right. Care. That's what most people would judge it by.
Yeah.
Not knowing what it is. Yeah.
Also, it's a little weird. Like, it's not wrong to call it the Making of Karateka, but I think a lot of people look at that title and think it's not a game.
Right. I mean, when you first told me about it, I was like, what? And I Googled it, and I was like, oh my God, how did I not know about this? Like,
yeah, I only knew about it because I know a guy who worked on it, and he was posting about it on Facebook, and I'm like, oh, I love that game, so I'm going to totally check that out. And then it was way beyond what I was expecting. I was expecting your usual retro collection. It's like, okay, it's got like, versions, early versions of the game and early versions of the other stuff he worked on at the time. Like, that's pretty standard retro stuff. Okay, cool. But like, to have this whole, like, it's basically an hour-long documentary about the making of this game that almost nobody remembers.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting because you're, not even if you don't care about Karateka, this is the story about how the man who created Prince of Persia
got
started making video games.
Yeah.
Like when Prince of Persia was, that was an atomic bomb.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it changed.
People don't realize.
And like, people, they talk about it in this as well, about like, people who started developing games out of this after they played it, and like, oh, you can tell a story, like, you can do it, because this was like 82 or something, 82, 83.
You're playing Pac-Man and
there
stuff
was
like
nothing
that.
like
Space
this.
Invaders,
nothing like, with that animation, with like movement, like,
well, remember, in television then comes along a couple years later, and they have the animation for the athletes, and it's like, whoa, it's, and like,
it has the scroll at the beginning, like Star Wars, and then like, the other thing that's really cool about it, that I always liked, is that how, it has very little to work with in terms of sound, so it's telling the story with music cues. Like, if you can't hear it through our B-roll, but like, when you see the bad guy standing there with his hand, like that, like a guy runs in and he goes dun dun dun, dun and like, and like, because he sounds like a bad, and he goes, and when he points, dun dun dun, dun, and like, and it's like telling you what to think there. And like, that would be a key way of imparting information for games until the 3D
3D era, really.
Yeah.
And this is one of the first games to do that.
Well, until we got out of the cart area where they could have
Yeah.
had the space to have vocal samples and stuff. Yeah, without him sounding like a robot.
But it was like, this is one of the earliest examples of, oh, you can use music to convey meaning and emotion and tell, you don't need him to say anything in text under the screen. You just need that music cue.
A little,
that tells you, oh, the bad guy's them commanding him to go do the thing.
Yeah.
Like, there's no dialogue through the whole fucking thing. And there's great little, that's one of my formative memories is, so you, at the end, you beat the guy. You beat him. If you beat him, it's pretty hard. Like, he's hard. He is much less stupid than the other guys in the game. Then you can go into the room with the girl, with the princess. So, and I didn't quite know what to do. So the thing you need to do, because if you go in and if you stop, she sort of like goes like this. And like what you're supposed to do is run into her and you hug her and it's the end of the game. But every other thing in the game, if you run straight into something, it kills you or hurts you.
Right.
So I stopped, and like when I stopped and started to drop into the karate pose, she goes, yeah, and like kicks you and kills you in one hit.
No
and that's
way.
the end of the game. If you like approach her in even a slightly aggressive way, she kills you.
Yeah.
And it's great. I was like, oh, like, and I'd never seen anything like this. This was 1985 or something. I played it a couple years after it came out, but it was mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And then Prince of Persia coming out and like, being like, oh, and then you find out that's the same guy, and you're like, oh, of course it is. Of course it is.
It makes sense. Yeah. So there you go. That's the Making of Karateka. I'm glad I'm saying that correctly now. It's available for everything for $15.
Karateka was a long. I think that's the way he pronounces it.
Well, that's all that matters.
I remember, and that's the way I pronounced it when I was playing it. But then I remember there were ads for it. For I want to say the Commodore 64. There were ads for the Commodore 64 or whatever, and was like, get in, and they would list a bunch of games, and they listed this one, but the announcer said Karateka.
No,
and I'm like, is that how you're supposed to pronounce
different
it?
than
I don't think that's right. There's no, because it's just karateka.
Yeah.
It just means practitioner of karate.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
So it's so this was a very, very pleasant surprise out of almost nowhere.
Yeah.
Both in the sense of resurrecting a game that I loved as a kid, and like this is the best retro presentation of anything I've ever seen.
It's really cool.
Like it's phenomenally good.
Yeah. So that's what we like to do on GameFace sometimes. Turn you guys onto some stuff, some products that are really pushing the boundaries on stuff. I really feel like this is really innovative and something that maybe, at the very least, I think publishers are going to start fishing around and saying, hey, could we do something like that maybe? Mm-hmm. It's the most clever way to repackage a retro game that I've ever seen.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, and like it's way better than just a random art gallery or some little thing like this is really well. I mean, clearly a lot of effort went in. Like they got a crew and they went on. There's some real effort happening here, and it's only possible in a situation where you actually have all that history still there and the people are still around and living. But that's the other thing is like.
Time is the enemy.
Time is the enemy, but also like we're getting to the point where some of the people that were there in the beginning are not going to be around much longer.
Yeah.
Not that Jordan Mechner's that old, but like there's other people that like maybe were running
older when they were doing that. Yeah.
Like you got to get to these people.
Yeah.
You got to you got to record this. You got to get this on tape. You got to have.
You would think there'd be like tons of Atari 2600 games you could do this with.
You could, but the problem.
David Crane's still around.
But the problem is they're Atari 2600 games.
Yeah.
And they're not. They're not very good.
Yeah.
There's I watched a video that was like every Indiana Jones game ever made, reviewed. It's like 2.5 hours long or something. But it starts, of course, with the early ones, and they're like Atari 2600. I'd never even seen them before. And you cannot tell what you're looking at. That's the thing about so many of these games.
You're right.
And it was made by the same, I think the same guy.
It tells you, and then your brain fills in the blanks.
But it's even some of them, like, it was made by the same guy that I think made Yar's Revenge. And that was a fairly well-known game back at the time. But they showed footage of Yar's Revenge, and I hadn't probably seen Yar's Revenge since I played it on enough. And I could not tell you what don't forget like what the things are supposed to be. I don't know what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like it's so abstract.
That is one of those Atari 2600 games where the box art really sold the game.
Oh yeah, the box art.
The box art for Yar's Revenge is awesome, but it's
you need to have that box art right in front of you. Like, no, okay, that's what I'm supposed to be thinking. All right,
exactly. Yep. So there you go. That's the Making of Karateka, and it's available for everything for $15. And we say everybody should get it. Support products like this so we get more.
Yeah, even if you don't care about Karateka, like buy it to see how it should be done.
Yeah.
Like this is all. It's also great that this exists because now you can just show this to someone and say that's what we want to do with your old game.
Right.
Like that should be enough to convince
Digital
anybody.
Eclipse should be able to do this for perpetuity if it wants to.
This should be their new like cottage industry.
Yeah.
It's just doing this for old games.
Yep, agreed. All right. Show's not quite over yet, but it almost is. But before that, it's time to hear a word from our sponsor, SoundWizardry.com. Experience the realm of extraordinary audio with Sound Wizardry. With a decade-long journey in sound design, we animate your movies and video games with the breath of sound. Our wide-ranging services include sound design, Foley, sound mixing and mastering, audio implementation, dialogue mastering, and the crafting of unique sound effects from freshly recorded material. Our portfolio contains Baldur's Gate 3, Steven Universe, Alan Wake 2, Gwent, Cyberpunk 2077, and more. Visit SoundWizardry.com and let us transmute your vision into an auditory marvel. Matt, I just found out last week that from our sponsorship, SoundWizardry.com got a call from a major gaming publisher.
Nice.
That's what we like to hear.
What major gaming publisher is watching this show?
I'm not going to share that.
All right.
Because I haven't talked to him about it, so I don't know if he wants people to know. But yeah, it's awesome. I was like, that is freaking amazing.
Someone's always paying attention, Mr. Mulder.
His point was that like there are important people watching your show, basically, which is why he wanted to sponsor our show. So big thanks to Sound Wizardry.
It can sometimes be a detriment because like there was the time when we found out that Steven Spielberg watched the G4 feedback podcast, and we're like, what? Like, and he's like, oh, his assistant came up to Adam during some charity event. It's like, oh, Steven said thanks for the boom block, the kind words about boom blocks. He's like,
what?
Steven, what? And he's like, he's like, oh, he never misses it. I'm like,
yeah.
Don't tell me that. Don't tell me Steven Spielberg listening to what I think about Devil May Cry. Come on. Like, nobody needs to know that.
Yep. So a big thanks to SoundWizardry.com for their sponsorship. If you have any audio issues, projects, whatever, hit them up. They can handle all of it. Even if I think you just need some consulting. Like, sometimes I just, I probably should pay him for this, but I haven't. He's been very, very kind to me. But there are times where I just have questions about audio, and I email him, and he's very gracious, and he answers them for me. They are audio experts. So if you need anything sound-related, make sure you hit up SoundWizardry.com. And with that, now it's time for... That's right. It's time for Name That Game. It's a fun little game we play here on GameFace where I show you guys 5 screenshots and you try to guess the name of that damn game before Matthew Kyle. Couple things before we get going. Chat's on slow mode, so you can't spam the chat with a bunch of random game titles. You get one chat every 60 seconds, so don't blow it. Number 2, and this is a big one, and I'm just going to bring this up right now. And I don't know if he's on the stream right now or not. I'm not going to call him out by name, but the last person who won Name That Game, I discovered once I got home that they had already won Name That Game this year. And one of the rules is you can only win once per year.
Jail.
And so,
jail for 1,000 years.
And so if you've already won, do not play. I was very dismayed to learn that. Now, to be fair, I will say that the person who won did not reach out to me trying to get a second free game, which I do appreciate. But somebody else could have won Name That Game. So if you've already won this year, do not play. Also, if you have no interest in a code for a PC game, you're not going to play it, you don't know anyone who would play it, please don't play. We give away a free game, and I'll just say right now, I don't know if he's on the stream either, Sifter Swanland hooks us up with a ton of codes for the free game, so I just want to call him out here on the show and thank him for supplying the codes. But let's not waste the codes. If you're not going to play a PC game, or you're not going to give it away to somebody who will play a PC game, also please do not play. Just kick your feet up and enjoy. My prognostication is... Well, I just totally went to the wrong screen here. My prognostication is that... Oh, what did I just do? Hold on. I think I just totally messed up the TriCaster. No, here we go. Thank heavens. My prognostication is that this will take it until the 4th image until you guys get it. That's what I'm guessing. But we'll see. I'm always wrong on this, so we'll see how it goes. Are you ready, Matt, for Name That Game?
Sure.
Are you guys ready? Here is the first image.
Ghost of Tsushima.
Not Ghost of Tsushima, but that's a good guess. That's a very good guess. Everybody thinking in the chat. Swanland is here. So thank you, Swanland, for all the codes you give out for this. MGS2, no. MechWarrior Online, no.
That's an interesting guess.
Oh! Huh, I was so wrong. Sleeping Turtle 3 got it already. That's crazy, dude. It is Life is Strange. And he got it from that. That's amazing. You guys blow me away. Wow. I really didn't think you guys would get it that early. But you did. So Sleeping Turtle 3, congratulations. It's over. Everyone's still guessing. It's over. He already got it. It took him like 2 seconds. That's amazing. Wow. I don't know how you got it from that, man, honestly. Like, that's incredible. Here's the second shot.
What?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what you got to do to keep people from getting them. I didn't think they'd get it from the first one. And they did. Here's the third one.
Should have led with that one.
Shows you the lighthouse, which could have tipped some people off. There are obviously...
I would have known that.
You would have?
Yeah.
I mean, there are obviously tons of lighthouses in video games. But...
Yeah, but that's the latest Life is Strange. I mean, I knew that those trees, but couldn't place it. And then when he said that, I was like, oh,
they're blurred so much, though. Like, I don't know. I'm shocked.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. They're blurred. It's the way they're constructed. Like, the construction of a tree is kind of almost a fingerprint with a developer.
That's a good point.
Like, you always know a Bethesda tree.
Yeah. Yep.
Whether you realize it or not.
Sneaky says, I'd get it on image too. It's the pool, right? Yep, it was from the pool scene. Yeah. See, different people resonate with different clues. Here's the fourth one where I was like, they'll definitely get it from this.
The Academy,
yeah. It shows the Academy. And then if you didn't get it from this one, you didn't play Life is Strange.
Yeah.
And you probably didn't watch any trailers for it either. Yep. So, all right. Well, once again, another round of applause. That's incredible, man, that you got that. Just from those trees. You guys are awesome. I say it every week. We have the best. We have the best audience. Sifters rule all, as far as gamers are concerned. That's how I feel about it. So there you go. Congratulations. Send us a DM. You can do it right here on Twitch at twitch.tv/siftedgames. You can send me a DM on Twitter. I'm at Dinfire. Not for long, but I'm still there. I haven't tweeted in like 2 months, but my account's still there. But I do check for DMs after the show's over to see if you guys DM me there, so I will look. Or you can DM Sifted on Twitter at Sifted Games, or you can just DM me on Sifted at Shane, and we'll get your code out to you. Congratulations once again. And with that, we do have a little bit of time for some Q&A, or do we? Yep, we have enough time for about 2 questions. So let's see what you guys got here. Let's see. El Guapo 3385. I got here late, so apologies if you already went over this. With SAG after members voting for a video game strike, how big of an impact will this have with the short-term, long-term prospect for video game development? We did kind of talk about...
Slightly. I mean, it may or may not happen. They just voted to approve it. So that it still may or may not happen. Short-term, nothing. Long-term, it could significantly delay some things, but I don't think a video game SAG strike would feasibly last past Thanksgiving because of other things in play.
Were you surprised that the writer strike ended? Because you had said earlier you thought it might go into next year. I was surprised when I saw it.
So I think what happened there was... I think partly what happened there is they realized that the AI model is not feasible, and they had no other recourse. There may be other things in play. The horrible choice to form the coalition of streaming service owners may have been sort of their back door out of this for the studios. That's going to bite them in the ass eventually. Yeah, the WGA seems pretty happy with what they got. They still have to figure things out with SAG, but SAG should be an easier get. The writers were the ones who were going to be most likely to be shortchanged, and it sounds like they weren't. At least as far as the WGA leadership is concerned. So we'll see.
Okay. I think I saw someone from Erebus Jones. The newer Resident Evil games are coming to iPhone. Do you think Apple could make a splash in gaming if they developed a dock and pad for their phone like the Switch? Good question, Erebus Jones. Yeah, I think they could, absolutely. I mean, I would just like a device that I could just, besides doing it with like AirPlay, I would like to be able to plug my phone into my TV. I would.
It's never occurred to me to want to do that.
Because AirPlay's laggy and the audio quality's crappy. Like, I would like to have a cable plugged into my TV. I can just plug my phone in and just go through my phone like on my TV.
It's interesting use case. I would never ever do that.
I mean, you didn't ever show people your photos on their TV?
I have a laptop for that, but also like no, I don't really.
Oh, I do it all the time.
No.
Like when I go home, I sit with my mom on her TV. I just go through my photos from the last 6 months and show her everything that I've done.
You know, the last time I downloaded photos from my phone to my computer.
I mean, I don't do it either, but that's beside the point. I'm just showing photos to people. But anyway, I would like to see it. When people buy it,
I mean, there's no hook for an Apple game device like that. It's like, what's going to be on it? What can I count on to be on it? What?
3 Resident Evil games.
Yeah, but it's like there's no there. You know, they're not a game company.
Also, they announced today that they're going to charge $60 for the Resident Evil 4 remake on iPhone.
Not to me.
Can I play taps right now for that? Seriously, I think it's a terrible idea.
I mean, that does speak to like the level of quality they think it's at. But who willing to pay $60 for that game does not already have that game on something else? It's just I don't.
The market for console games on mobile is just small. We know that already. But his question is saying, okay, well, what if they take that extra step so that to increase the size of the market? Like, it's a smart question. But
sure, but like my response to that is mainly think about how much Apple would charge for that item.
Yeah,
they charge you $30 for a fucking cable.
That's true.
That dock would be more than a Switch.
You're right.
For a $1,500 phone.
Yeah.
To me it's a dead end.
Yeah.
Like the entry level on it is so ridiculously high price. It doesn't make any sense.
Lynn Jeff 99. What about an audio version of Name That Game? What with like
sounds,
OSTs or sound effects?
Yeah.
I used to have a bunch of gaming sound effects loaded on the TriCaster. They got deleted somehow.
We used to do that back in the old days. We had our chat room group on AOL. This guy was like a huge...
That's when you know it was the old days.
This guy was a huge collector of OSTs, and he had it all ripped to MP3s back when that was a thing you had to do like by hand. And it was called his random daily game music track, and he would send an unlabeled, just like it was labeled like what number it was, and he did it for years. He got into thousands, or I think got up to 1,000 and stopped. But it was like he just send everybody an MP3, and you had to listen to whoever responded with the right answer first, like one. And like for once in a while for special ones, like someone would contribute like a game code or a when that was unusual, or like if you win this, I'll send you. Like when I used to get like swag for stuff I didn't want, I would tell him, and so he would eventually, like, he knew I had a shirt for whatever this game was, so then he'd send that. He's like, if you win this, you get a shirt for the game. And so I would send somebody a shirt that I didn't want.
That's cool.
So we used to do that back in the day. It was fun.
Something worth considering for sure, Jeff Lynn, no doubt about it. But we're gonna have to call it right there.
But that was also that was back in like the early 2000s when you couldn't Google anything. So
right.
Like it was the whole song. It wasn't like 5 seconds. It was the whole song. And like if you didn't know it, you didn't know it. That was it.
I mean, it's like Name That Tune for video games. Basically, that old game show from the 80s, I think it was, or 70s. I don't remember.
Both. It ran
I guess
for a
it
long
did
time.
last for a while. Maybe I think they're doing a new one now.
There probably
too,
is a new one.
I think I saw a promo for it on TV.
I mean, there's a bunch of Wordle style games for that anyway. Might as well make a commercial enterprise out of it. Why not?
Yep. All right, that's going to do it for GameFace 359. If you're watching this show on YouTube, or you're listening to it on any of the podcast services, and it is on all of them, it would be great if you could head to patreon.com/sifted and support us with a monthly pledge. $4 a month gets you all our content early. You get GameFace 4 days early. You get Pachter Factor a week early. You get all our other content at least 3 days early. And again, that's $4 a month. We're way below what all the other major gaming Patreons are at. If you could do that, that'd be great. If you're broke, I totally understand that. There are still ways that you can help us. One, you can just take that app that you're listening to this show on right now on your phone and just go and review the show. And I'm hoping you're going to give us a good review. But even if you don't, it still helps us. Just having that number of reviews makes a big, big difference. So if you're listening to this show right now on your phone, just go into that app and just review the show. It's a way to help us without spending a penny. It'll take you like 5 seconds. Just write 5 stars, awesome, and you're done. Also, another way you can help us that actually will give us money is if you help us out with Twitch Prime. If you're watching it on YouTube, down below is the instructions. If you've been watching Pactor Factor for the last however many years, you already know all about it. It's very simple to do. Once you link your accounts, it literally takes 3 seconds to give us $2.50 every month. It's free if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber. Also, by the way, Matt, did you see that Amazon Prime is now going to start charging us $3 a month to watch the Amazon Prime without ads?
I did see that.
It's crazy.
Jeff Bezos is not rich enough.
On top of the what is it now, like $140 a year for Amazon Prime?
Yep, something like that.
And now they want to nickel and dime us for $3 more per month. Anyway,
well, it's going to cost them so much more to pay these writers fairly.
Exactly.
So,
well, my point is, get everything you can out of that Amazon Prime subscription and help us out with it. Again, Amazon gives us free money. It costs you nothing. So we'd really appreciate it if you could do that. But obviously the best thing is go to patreon.com/sifted and give us a pledge, because that is permanent and something that we can count on when we try to figure out our budgets and things like that. So we really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody in our chat. As always, they're awesome. They fact check us in real time. They add context. They ask great questions. They kill it at Name That Game. So thanks to everybody who showed up. We will be here on Tuesday. I realize this was a short week. We got the show together in like 5.5 days or whatever. We will be here every Tuesday at twitch.tv/siftedgames at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern until the end of the year. No more vacations, no more anything. We are now on the Q4 grind, Matt Kyle. Are you ready?
Sure.
So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you guys play some great games. We'll see you next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.